Hey, baddies. I we're back. this this is the Jool Effect podcast. Excuse my lack of eloquence, speed. Probably going to be pretty rambly this particular podcast, but well, because I had a very late night. Okay, I had a very late night. But welcome back to the Jool Effect podcast. It is I, your host, one Julian Badlands, explorer of all things Sapphic, video game wise. We talk about some movies, some music over here, and today we're going to introduce a new topic. That's actually what I wanted to start on today with the podcast. I have ideas, lots of ideas about what each week is going to consist of, how the format is going to go, if you will. And I want to keep introducing new ideas before I start repeating ones, if that makes sense. Because first week we did our first Black History Month. We got the Black History movies out there. Second week we jumped right into some music. I'm trying to align my interests, excuse me, with a lot of different individuals. Spread that ye old demographic out. To let the folks know that I have a lot of different sides to me. I'm an onion. I got a lot of layers. Okay. And this week we're gonna explore a new topic, which I hate spoiling things. So if you don't know what it is, I'm not telling you until we get into that part. Keep in mind, this is my first podcast without like a design script. Like I said, I had a very, very late night. I didn't get a chance to type that up. So I'm gonna try to stay on track. We're just gonna I burped. Oh god. We're just gonna see where that goes. But as I was saying, I want to kind of hit a lot of topics, spread myself very thin, and then start building back up on other topics. Meaning, I can't do an album review every single week. I can't do a movie review every single week. Maybe I'll start doing different Black History movies or different times and whatnot. But I wanna show the judges some versatility. Basically, that is the plan. There's a interesting sound that was just made. I want to show the judges some versatility. That is the plan. And with this week, I'm spreading myself out even more so. But if you're new here, hey, how are you doing? You look great. Like I said, my name is Julian. If you're new here, I am a voice actress over on Reddit to an audience of over 1,000 baddies. If you guys don't know what baddie is, that's what you guys are. My audience, my followers, the folks that support me, y'all are the baddies. And yes, if you're a guy and you like me, you're a baddie too. And I'm here to tell you. But yes, I make voice acting content over on Reddit, and I impulsively started my podcast now, going to be 3 weeks ago. So if you're here to hear me speak and you like the sound of my voice, go ahead and press the subscribe button, please, and like my videos and share them and do all that fun stuff. Cause I'm here, and I'm here to stay, and I like doing this content. I was talking to one of my friends this week about how much I enjoy doing the podcast, and like getting different ideas for it and whatnot. And that brings me to my next topic. Good for me for staying on topic, which is where the podcast is going to go. Now, I upload on SoundCloud and YouTube, primarily on SoundCloud beforehand because I had a lot of technical difficulties trying to get videos to YouTube. But now I have a format that works for me. That's it's visually acceptable for YouTube, but it's audio centric in its essence. So I have a format that works for YouTube, And that was the main reason why I relied very heavily on SoundCloud. But I am using the free version of SoundCloud because I like things that are free.com, you know. So I have been debating, is it worth it to buy a SoundCloud subscription? And in my sense right now, it is not. I don't think I would get that much value out of it, especially because I can just transition fully to YouTube. And I actually really, really, really enjoy editing my YouTube videos. You're going to see like each week, I'm going to build off each one. Something's going to be different until I hit like a format. Like this week, even last week, there's going to be different stuff that are going to be in my intro and my outro and general in the video. Cause I'm just trying to learn what I like and do new things and just continue to explore new options and stuff. But as I said about SoundCloud, for that reason, this will most likely be my last upload for the podcast over there until I'm able to have the means for a premium subscription, and I can start just uploading the rest over to SoundCloud, probably with less editing, because believe it or not, that I have to do I have to record it and then copy the recording to another page, edit that one, and then continue to edit my actual YouTube video. And editing two things at once it's a lot on a girl, especially when I have shit to do on Fridays anyway. So it's just a lot, and I don't think I can sustain it, or I'm gonna forget or something. And I don't want to do that because I want people to be like, "Where's the SoundCloud podcast or whatever?" I'm like, just watch it on YouTube. Just watch it on YouTube. From now on, things are going to be uploaded on YouTube. And if that's inconvenient for you, I apologize. But that is what is most convenient for me. And that is what I enjoy doing the most, even though I won't have things on multiple platforms. So I'll have more coverage. That just means you have to share my shit more on YouTube. Yeah. I'm joking. But, yeah. So for the folks out there who were avid SoundCloud listeners, we were here 2 weeks ago and then last week, and you're looking for the upload on SoundCloud, this will most likely be the last upload on SoundCloud for my podcast. That is so gross. I'm so sorry. Most likely be the last upload on SoundCloud for my podcast, and we'll transition just fully to YouTube and just hit that grind for the tubers out there. I don't know, but yeah, that's going to be that's the main announcement that I have is the transition from YouTube to SoundCloud. My week has been very, very busy. Excuse me if you hear my body move. I'm wearing like parachute pants. I wonder if you can hear that. I don't know. But if you didn't, you just heard silence and you're like, what the fuck is she doing? I'm so sorry. But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Yes, I did. Well, I was talking about something and then I got distracted. This is why I'm fucking tired. I'm fucking tired, and I'm doing this after like destroying my brain last night trying to finish my novel. Shit, I just fucking spoiled it. God damn it. Anyway, see, I'm fucking tired. I was going to say something. Is it gonna come back? I don't think it is. Oh, my week. Yes, okay, it came back. Okay. My week was very, very busy. And last week was actually pretty lax. I talked about that in the podcast. And then this week was like, hey, did you forget that you have responsibilities and things to do, and you can't just sit around and have a lazy day every single day? Did you forget? And I was like, I did forget. Thank you for reminding me. But yeah, it's been a very, very busy week. But one thing that has kept me through it is that fucking video of Julia Fox going, Uncut Gems. Yeah, I was his muse because, like, I was in Uncut Gems. Like, why do you say it like that? This whole Kanye shit this week has been like watching a car crash. Like, I can't help myself. I can't. but also it's everywhere, and I keep seeing his bitch ass. We're gonna keep my opinions about Mr. Kanye, Mr. West, Mr. Ye, excuse me, to myself. But this whole shit has been a lot. But back to my busy week. Uncut jams. It's so funny. Back to my. Well, that reminds me of another video. Okay, try to stay focused. Okay, try. Okay, that reminds me of another video. Do you guys know those videos of Bella Hadid who's pretending to be like another nationality? There's a really loud car. This loud car that's in my fucking neighborhood all the time. It's like this big ass Ford truck. Ooh, is that the garbage truck? What is that? I don't know. It's making a lot of noise though. I would love it if you stopped, because I'm recording a podcast for the Baddies. But you're being like super loud and like annoying, and I can't help it. But anyway, back to the videos of fucking Bella Hadid. Bella Hadid. There's videos of her. She's an interesting character, first of all. And there's these videos of her. And she's pretending like she's like Italian. Like straight up. She's like, yeah, it is to die for. No? Like, you're from Washington, D.C. You are like straight out like Washington, D.C. You are Arab. I don't know what her... We're going to look it up because I have my phone out. I don't know what her like actual... Well, not actual, but where her ethnicity is. Bella Hadid. She is an American model born in fucking Washington, D.C. October 9th. That's actually one of my friend's birthdays. This is already diluting. Oh, wow. Okay. Early life. Palestinian, Jordanian. Her father. And then her mom, Yolanda. Okay. So, not Italian is the main point I'm making. Not Italian and not French. Because there's similar videos of her doing the same shit in a French accent. Why do you do that? That video is so funny because she's like, yes, it is so exquisite. It is to die for. No? Like, you don't talk like that. You don't do that. You're from Washington, D.C. Why are you talking like that? I'm very confused. But anyway, uncut jams and her saying fucking exquisite. No, though those are the same person in different fonts. It's the same bitch. Also, fucking shout out to Julia Fox for being able to... Is that her name? I feel like I'm saying her name wrong. That's not her name. I'm gonna be so embarrassed though. Julia. Yes, it is. Yeah, she's Italian. Yeah. So, shout out to her for dating Mr. West. I think that probably was a Harvard experiment or something. I don't fucking know. This has been a weird week. This has been a strange week. I don't even have an Instagram. That's like, I'm like one of the only like fucking young adults I feel like that doesn't have a fucking Instagram, which sucks sometimes because like when I'm talking to girls, and they're like, "You have an Instagram?" I'm like, "No, I don't, sweetheart, I don't." But this has been a weird ass week because I have a Twitter, which you guys know. If you don't have me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at JBadlands, no spaces, both capitals. Anyway, everything has been getting filtered from Instagram to Twitter because social media is just like a little loop. You know what I'm saying? It's just, everything is just, you know, we go here, then we go there, and then we go there, and we just keep circling and recycling. I see a lot of Tumblr shit on my Twitter, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? But I had Tumblr like back in the day, but I left when the porn apocalypse hit. Yeah, that was a dark time. But yeah, I kept seeing the shit from Instagram on my timeline, and I was like, what is this madness? What is Kanye talking about? What's going on with him? Is he okay? You know, because but bipolar, that shit is real as fuck. Like that's some real ass shit. And it makes me very upset because people like to laugh and like hoorah, and they like to kiki over him. Like if even the shit, not even just with Julia Fox, because you know they're uncut jams, and him, they're, but just the shit in general that's going on with Kim right now. I do think the chemistry between her and Pete Davidson is oddly working. I don't like them together, but oddly I see it. Like, I don't know, I understand. It makes sense to me. What Kanye is doing right now is so... This is the way I'm going to put it. If they were regular people, okay? If they weren't multi-millionaires, part of dynasty, well, Kim's in a dynasty family, rather, and Kanye is an entire brand, experience, way of thinking, if they weren't who they are, and he was acting this way, police report. There would be no kiki rah about it. There would be a police report, and there would be restraining orders, and there would be repercussions for his actions. But because he's fucking Kanye West, and people think it's funny to laugh over his fucking mental illness, it's just so clear, and his health problems, that it's very disheartening for me, because I'm like, dude, I don't even like you that much, and like, I can't support this. But I also can't support the people who are just laughing at the joke, because it's harassment at this point. Like, I don't know. And we've deviated. Yeah, we fucking deviated. We're fucking, what time is that? 60 minutes in. All right, look, we got to transition. This is what happens when I don't have a script. Shit, when I have a script, it fucking flows, because I find ways to get messages in between shit. But I'm trying to think of something. Yeah, okay, we'll go there. Okay, so earlier, remember, I was telling you guys about how I'm trying to branch out into more topics before I start repeating topics. And this week I was having some trouble with what I wanted to do for the podcast rather. And I have actually an idea for next week, which I was like, it's like already like set in stone, and I'm super excited to do it. But this week I was like, what am I gonna do? And I thought, I'm gay. Yes. A lot of my audience is gay. Well, I would wager almost all of my audience is gay, of some queer, sapphic, of some capacity. And I was like, wow, I am a connoisseur of sorts when it comes to sapphic literature. Sapphic literature. And I was like, wow, you could do a book review, because I love book reviews on YouTube. Okay, Strange Aeons, fuck me up. Fucking Crimson Rogue, he's a playlist called his Masochistic Tango, where he reviews like god awful books, and I they're like hour and a half long videos, 2-hour videos. I sit down, watch the whole thing. I want to be like that. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a book review today. If the thumbnail and the title was not, what's that word I'm trying to look for? Wasn't obvious enough, if it didn't tell you, I'm going to tell you right now, because I didn't tell you earlier, we're doing a book review. If books aren't your thing, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell the whole plot. So this is basically just going to be a storytelling thing. But we're going to get into it, okay? We're going to get into it. And the book today we're going to be reviewing is... That was my drum roll. Behind the Green Curtain by Riley Lashea. Not Lashea? Lashea? Lashea. I'm surprised I spelled that with the level of productivity in my brain. But anyway, yeah, Behind the Green Curtain is the book we're going to be reviewing today. And this novel I discovered about last year. I went through like a deep dive of like, I'm going to read every single sapphic novel that is part of my interest. And this is where I plug something. I got very, very into sapphic novels, but I didn't really have a means to find them. I didn't know any good authors. I didn't know, like, basically, I was a rookie. Okay, that was his main point. I didn't know how to get there. And I found this website. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not paid for them. Unless they want to fucking sponsor me, have me fucking review books in a podcast format. I'm just saying. this website is called The Lesbian Review. And I understand that not every single Sapphic is a lesbian, right? But the website is called The Lesbian Review. And this website was like a godsend for me, especially someone like me. I get distracted by a lot of colors and fonts and different things, and a lot of times a really cool cover of a novel would be very misleading, and it just wouldn't have something that interests me. And I was trying to find a website that could get all my needs together, and they do, because they tag each novel. Okay, they organize by levels of sex in novels. They organize by if it's a femme butch pairing, a butch pairing, a femme on femme pairing. They organize by age gaps. Sometimes I know some of y'all bitches out there like some age gaps, if it's like I think they do it by like that not weird, excuse me, they do it by like that calendar analogy, like the May to December, that shit, or like fucking April to like September, that shit, like what phase of life, rather, quote unquote life, the women Sapphics are in the novels. But they're so good. The website was amazing when I found it, incredible. But I had one critique: it did not have an advanced search for the longest time, because they tag a lot. It's like fucking rich girl, poor girl dynamic, enemies to lovers, lots of sexual content, age gap. Like, there's so many things they tag, but there was no way to filter them all together to find books that had all those tags. And I was like, why do you tag if you don't have an advanced search? And my little butt one time was like, oh, you know what? I haven't checked any novels on the Lesbian Review. Let me go check. And I saw they had a fucking advanced search, and I fucking clapped my damn feet. I was so fucking happy. So damn happy. And I could find novels that I wanted like that. They also have audiobook reviews there too, if you're an audiobook girl, because I'm an audiobook girl. But if you're not, they have the majority of the website are novels that you can find on Amazon Kindle, and a bunch of they have different affiliate links for different regions of the world. I know they have like the Amazon for like Britain, and stuff like that. So if you're not based in like the US, then they'll have affiliate links that you can go get the book from and buy the book and whatnot. But I found this book about a year ago behind the green curtain, and it was tagged wonderfully. Now, before we get into this novel, because we're close, we're about to jump in. I'm gonna explain the format we're gonna do this in. But first, this is I'm gonna disclose, explain the format, and then I'm gonna disclose again. Okay, disclosure, disclosure. Okay, I have to burp. I don't know what's coming. It's coming now. Oh my god, Jesus. Okay, full disclosure. This novel features infidelity, cheating. If that is not your thing, that's fine. I understand sometimes certain elements within the guise of a fictional world are much more acceptable, taboo, and even desirable to some. I am not a person that will go out and seek infidelity or cheating, but if it is presented in a novel, I am not mad at it, especially if it's a sapphic novel, because it's like, it's not for you, man. Like, unless you're out there all my he, him lesbians, I love y'all babies. But for real, if it's not about the man. I don't really care. And most of the time, men are assholes in sapphic novels. So, it doesn't bother me. This novel features infidelity. So if that is a big trigger for you, big red flag, I suggest you do not go on with this review, and you find another video of mine to watch. Maybe you watch last week's or next week, or maybe I can come out with something you watched the previous week, the week before that. I can come out with something next week that is going to fit your interest, because this will not be it. Because a lot of this novel, almost all of this novel is about cheating, and that's a theme in the book, is cheating. So if that is a big trigger and you don't like it, and that's not your thing, and you don't find it sexy, and you don't like it, that's fine. But please don't witch hunt me because I'm reviewing a novel with some cheating in it. Because it's a good. I'm not gonna say my opinion. We're gonna keep that to myself. Okay, formatting. I'm going to go start off, right, like I am, by introducing the novel. And then we're going to get straight into a plot synopsis. Now, I was trying to figure out last night when I was reading, last afternoon, all yesterday when I was reading, how the best way to do this. And I think I'm going to go chapter by chapter, okay? But, because there's 56 chapters. And I know you're like, why did you read that whole book in one night? I'm like, I don't know. But the first like 15 are very short, like 2 to 3 pages each. So they fly by. And then the middle of the book, so the big chunk from like chapters like 16 to probably like 40, maybe like 45 are longer, more robust. I'll have a lot more content, except when you get to about like chapter 30. Chapter 30 through like 45, it's very repetitive, kind of the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to say by about chapter 30, we're going to start speeding up the review and getting through chapters much more. I tried to leave synopsized notes at the end of each chapter to kind of just tell, okay, this is what happened, and it doesn't really account for anything. But we're going to do plot synopsis, so I'm going to tell you everything that happens in the book to the best of my abilities. We're going to go over my notes that I did while reading this fucking book, which so I'm like thinking about some of them. I'm so fucking funny. Anyway, and then we're going to get into character analysis and also my general thoughts, feelings, opinions, pros and cons of the novel that come to my head. Now, when I say my plot synopsis, because I'm doing my character analysis, there's something in my mouth. I'm so sorry, you can hear my mouth moving. We're going to get into character analysis after the plot, which means during the plot, I'm going to try to keep my opinions about each of the characters to myself. This is because I don't want to keep reiterating the same points about the plot, the synopsis, my feelings, my opinions. I don't want to keep hashing them out and just keep regenerating the same thing. So I'm going to say the things that the characters are doing and try to keep my thoughts and my opinions about how I think, how I feel about them to myself. I'm gonna try to keep my opinions to myself and tell the story. Obviously, I'm gonna get very emotional because there's a lot of points in here. And then we're gonna go into my general thoughts, opinions, and whatnot. And also, I can introduce my fan cast. But before that, we're gonna do my second disclosure. Again, this book features cheating and a lot of adult themes, crime. Yeah. If that's not your thing, get out of here, man. Get out of here. I'm also going to be reading a lot of quotes. I have a lot of highlighted quotes that I think are very powerful and effective. And you know what? That's what we're gonna do. But for now, we're gonna transition fully into this novel. Now, what is Behind the Green Curtain about? Well, Behind the Green Curtain tells the story of one Caton, his main character's name is Caton, who works at this company, okay, big business company under an asshole, okay. The asshole's name is Jack Halston, all right, and they have some interesting dynamics. Jack's a pig. It's very, well, I'm gonna keep my opinions to myself about every single character except Jack. Jack's a piece of cock. He's a piece of shit. I stepped in a piece of gum the other day and it had more worth than this man does. So, my two main characters, my two Saphics, I'm going to keep my opinion to myself on them. And secondary characters, I'll try to keep my opinions to myself. But in general, I'm going to be shit talking Jack. And you know what? It's just therapeutic at this point. But Caton works underneath Jack at this company. Jack is the CEO of Halston and Company, and Jack is an asshole. As I said, he's a pig, he's an asshole, and he really does not like his wife, Amelia. We'll get into why, but he does not like his wife. So he basically, what's the good word? I wouldn't say extort, but he kind of tricks her into asking for an assistant so Caton could come in and assist his wife to piss her off. That is the main premise of the novel. Okay. She starts working underneath Amelia. Caton starts working underneath Amelia. And the story proceeds from there. And now we're going to get into the book. But before I do that, fan cast. I love a good fan cast for novels. This goes back to my Wattpad days, reading fan fiction at the ripe age of 12 years old on my fucking Kindle because I didn't have a phone. And I was just so into Sapphic content because that was the only way I could get it was through fan fiction. So we're going to talk about my fan cast. I've only casted Kaiten and Amelia, but I was talking last night, reading last night, trying to figure out what's their aura. What are they giving me? Like what's going on? How is it affecting me? Who are they? And I came up with a conclusion. Let me take you back. Circa 2010s, early 2010s. Ever seen a movie called Black Swan? Mila Kunis in that movie. This is Kaiten to me. Okay? I'm going to be imagining Kaiten as Mila Kunis this entirety of the book. Just her attitude in that particular movie. Very reminiscent of Kaiten's attitude in general. Okay? For our Amelia. Amelia is Venezuelan in the novel. And I see her as circa late 90s, early 2000s Catherine Zeta-Jones, like Mask of Zorro. That vibe, like that vibe. Even though Catherine Zeta-Jones is a whole ass white woman, I still see her like that. Okay. So that's my fan cast. I have Mila Kunis for Kaiten. I have Catherine Zeta-Jones for Amelia. And that's how I'm going to be imagining the story. And I hope that helps you guys imagining the story with me. And right now, we are going to fucking I bumped my fucking mic. That was a loud bump. We are going to be getting into the novel. All right? Y'all ready? Ready? Are you excited? We're going to go on a ride. Okay. Chapter 1. Chapter 1 begins like any other. Okay, it's an expository, introduction chapter, and we start with Kaiten's POV. All right, she's basically just telling main things about the company, about the vibe of the company. She's only been working there for 8 months at this point in time, but we have this wonderful quote, which is. A mostly closed door at Halston & Company was the equivalent of a sock on the doorknob of a college dorm. It wasn't the first time she had walked in on a similar scene in her 8 months on the Halston & Company staff. The owner and CEO, Jack Halston, was a predator, a well-known and disregarded fact. We get a wonderful introduction into our male antagonist of the novel. Main antagonist of the novel, Jack. He's a predator. He likes to fuck his fucking staff, and he wants to fuck Kaiten. And it's very well cemented within this first chapter. As far as we know, Kaiten is a lesbian. We know she's Sapphic, obviously. But she's a lesbian. And she is uninterested in Jack. We'll put it like that. Primarily uninterested in Jack in this first chapter. She finds him repulsive, as she should. He makes a lot of like these weird, really nasty comments. First one we make, now I got another quote. She's like at the copy machine, okay? And he steps up to her and he says, "Oh, I bet you do." Jack took another step until Kaiten could feel him just shy of brushing against her. It was the creep of quote. This is one of my favorite parts about the novel. She's like these, Riley Lashea does these very, very funny, obscure references or ways she writes the novel that gives you like these perfect images that happens. There's some beautiful lines in this book that we're going to get into. But this first one says, "It was the creep equivalent of a 4-year-old holding his finger a half-inch away from someone's face and saying, 'I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you.'" And she stopped herself just short of telling Jack as much as his eyes moved over her face. Jack says, "I think you have all kinds of talents you're not telling anyone about." So he's a fucking creep. That's what's established in the first chapter. Jack is a fucking creep. We're not supposed to like him. I don't like him, as you shouldn't. If we have any Jack apologists in here by the time this fucking review ends, get out. I'm kidding. You can stay. But I will be judging you. But yes. we also get another introduction into another side character. In this first chapter, we have Jenna. Okay. Jenna is Jack's assistant, practical fleshlight at this point. You know, he makes comments later in the novel about how she will do literally anything, and he means anything, to keep her job. Do with that what you will. So, you know, yeah. But I have more quotes for you. She said, Kaiten laughed, and that was putting it mildly. In the 6 months since Jenna was promoted to Jack's personal courtesan. Once again, very, very on the nose references. My note here says, nice. Because I thought that was funny. I did. And for my notes about Jack in this first chapter, it's just me reiterating, I hate this man already. I do. He's a menace to society, you know. And I made a comment about how she has only been working at the company for 8 months. It's not long. And Kaiten is knowingly aware of the more promiscuous activities of her boss, and she hasn't left. And this is something she's not left before she's met Amelia, but we do learn more about Kaiten's backstory, in why she stayed at the company and whatnot, which we're going to get into later. But going back to Jenna, you know, a personal courtesan, practical fleshlight. I have another quote. Jack is being fucking creepy at the goddamn coffee machine again. He says, "You shouldn't let all that talent go to waste." Jack added, slide another step into her as the last sheet of paper shot into the catch tray. Having to lean into him to fetch the copies, Kaiten took the move elbow first and harder than necessary, gratified at the puff of air that expelled from Jack as she retrieved them. So, she's got a little bit of bite. We'll see that in the novel. I really like, in this part of the story, how adamant she is on rejecting him. There's nothing in this novel that's gonna make you believe she's gonna fall in love with him, she's gonna like him. Like, no. Kaiten does not like this man. But he's just being a creep. More so, I have another quote. He says, that's a career stalling attitude. You never get anywhere by being content with what you don't have. You've got everything you need to make it on the executive floor. You should not be afraid of success. Trying to blackmail her into basically sucking his dick. You know, he's completely manipulating her at this point, being like, oh, my dick hurts. I need it sucked. Kaiten, can you suck my dick? Like, get out of here, bro. Get out of here. The last line of this first chapter is very, very, very accurate. Power bought loyalty. That's why Jack had both, which is true. This man is a control freak. And next chapter, we move into more of Kaiten's POV. Kaiten has a girlfriend in this novel. Somebody she's casually dating. It's not anything too serious. Well, they're having sex with each other, dating each other, but they also do not have a label on it, but also are not seeing any other people. So kind of unspoken claim, possession of each other. Something's going on, you know, like she has feelings for this person. Kaiten's girlfriend is named Laura. Kaiten's partner, rather, is named Laura. And, you know, I remember I told you I read this book last year, and you know I forget some details. So my note here says that I forgot she had a partner. Yes, knowing the story revolves around infidelity. It comes from both ends. So Kaiten is betraying Laura as Amelia is betraying Jack in the story, and there's this very interesting interaction that Laura and her have, where Laura, she says, you should quit. She declared, taking a bite. Kaiten says, I can't quit. Picking up the pie at her own plate and able to stir up the desire to eat it, she pushes it away, leaned back, and stared across the room at Laura's bookshelf, wondering how anyone had managed to align books with such precision. So she distracts herself. But it's the way that the rejection of the topic was handled. You know, it seems like this is something that Laura has brought up before. You know, you should quit your job, and Kaiten has just shot down. And I think it's either following or precluding even more fights about it. As we get further into the chapter, we see Laura doesn't like Jack for obvious reasons. She knows he's a creep. And Caitlin has another quote where she says she thinks back on the number of past encounters with Jack, and she tries to remember the number of times she's seen him leave the office without the handful of an office worker, meaning he's practically slept with every single woman there, and Laura has a right to be, I guess, a little bit afraid, not for the sense of not trusting Caitlin, but because of how slimy Jack is and how badly he wants to get what he wants. And she knows he wants Caitlin. So, very clear. We got some interesting implications being set into the novel in these first 2 chapters. But we move on forward. And, it's the second chapter is trying to tell us, they're a happy couple. They're a happy couple. They are a happy couple, and they are on their way to being in love. They haven't been together for that long. I think they said only a few months. A happy couple. They are on track in a sense. They are happy, healthy. It is trying to set that up, which, I can appreciate. Caden is an interesting character, which, again, I'll get into my thoughts about her later on. But chapter 3 begins with Jack's point of view, actually. This is interesting because most Sapphic novels, as I said earlier, do not highlight men in any essence. If anything, the most you get is maybe a GBF, a gay best friend, or a father, a brother, or a straight best friend or something, or an ex-boyfriend and whatnot, comes into the novel. And they're typically either they're an antagonist or a very, very supportive, but we never get to see their side. And this novel highlights Jack's side. And it's an interesting choice as an author to put in the perspective of somebody who's not within the main coupling that happens during the novel. And I think it's because she wants us to really hate this man, because every time he has a chapter, it's not often, okay? The book is technically Caitlin's. We do get Amelia's perspective as well. The book is hers. The most chapters are from Caitlin's perspective, but there are quite a few from Jack and Amelia that we get to see into their eyes. And every time we see into Jack's, every time I am forced to hear this man talk, it is just, he's slimy. And we begin with slime in his 3rd chapter. So my note here says, I like I said, we got his perspective. They describe the house, spotlights cast the grandeur Houston residence against the backdrop of night as Jack's car curved around the driveway and came to the stop at the gray cobblestone. So, money. They got one of them circular fucking driveways. They got money, richness, wealth, He makes this comment about Jenna he could picture a long-term position for her because he keeps his interest, meaning he bases a woman's wealth and worth on how sexually satisfied he is with her, which is just, man of the year. Really, we're just really hitting on the head on fucking I hate this man bingo. Like, fucking A. We continue further in this chapter, and we get the first details essence of Amelia in the book. And it comes in the form of Jack saying, quote, if there was anything he hated more than being waited upon, it was his wife, female mindfucks. Lovely relationship we seem to have between the two of them. Interesting dynamic between the two of them as well. We're gonna keep going. Next quote says, glancing past the closet door, he watched Amelia cross her arms over her long silk robe. To any other man, he knew she would be a sight to behold. Furious, but no less fuckworthy. So even within the midst of mentally berating her, he still finds the time, the worth to think with his penis. As we can see, this is a common pattern of behavior in Jack, is him being pissed off or something and still being like, you know what, I would still fuck her though, but I would fuck, she's a fucking stupid bitch, but I would fuck her. Like, that's him. to a T. Further in this perspective, I have a lot of notes on this page. Got a lot of things to say. So Jack comes in this third chapter. He comes in late into the office. He comes in late at coming home from the office, excuse me. And Amelia waited up on him, which is why he made the comment. He doesn't like being waited up on, it's a mind fuck, whatever. He makes these comments like saying, was I supposed to pick up toilet paper or something? Because it's implied that she doesn't wait for him. Amelia states the benefit with a sense of anger. He says, that was tonight? He didn't even feign concern. I forgot. He hadn't. So, he hadn't forgot. And, they've been in the unhappy marriage game for a very long time. It's heavily implied that it's been like this for a very long time. And, Jack says this. He hadn't forgot. Amelia says, I called you 7 times. I left messages on your assistant's voicemail. Jack says, we were busy. Unable to keep the smile off his face. So quite literally, smiling about his infidelity whilst talking to his wife about an event he missed because he was cheating, knowing that he was going to miss it. I mean, man of the year, y'all. Man of the century. Man of the millennia. Honestly. Amelia says, oh, I'm sure you were. She responded with that. So we know that Amelia knows in the third chapter that Jack is cheating on her. Probably with anything with a vagina and a pulse. Honestly. So we know. Interesting dynamics. Interesting dynamics to put right after chapter 2. After we get the wholesome and rather healthy dynamic between Laura and Caton. We get this very, very tumultuous contrast between Jack and Amelia, something very sinister and unhealthy and caustic. That was the contrast that we're getting, and I think it's very smart for the author to put the chapters after one another, because it's like, oh, okay, Caton's in a happy relationship and Amelia isn't, and it's like, are they gonna help each other? Setting it up. We're setting it up. But we prevail in this chapter. So Amelia knows Jack's cheating. And, she tries to go up the stairs because she's like, I don't want to fucking see you. I don't want to be near you. I don't want to touch you. She says, don't come near me. Quote, scoffing, Amelia moved for the stairs. And he sidestepped into her path, bringing her up short and feeling an undeniable sense of enjoyment as her furious gaze rose to his. So he gets joy off of pissing her off, basically. So he's not only a pig who wants to fuck anything he finds remotely attractive, he enjoys pissing off his wife, letting her down. Like I said, spouse of the year, ladies, gents, and NBs. Furthermore, Jack asks, what do you want to say? Amelia says, how about you're sorry? Jack says, I'm sorry. Jack said the words, but couldn't remember the last time he actually meant them. Furthermore, cementing the point, they've had a lot of issues in their marriage for a long time. They've had a lot of things wrong with their marriage for a long time. And you know what? We're in the third chapter, y'all. Like, we're not even in the fucking thick of it. Into the thick of it? I'm sorry. But we go for further. Amelia says this. I spent 3 months putting this together for you. Amelia returned. Eyes filling with traces of old fire Jack hadn't seen in some time. These are your parents, your friends, your associates. I don't appreciate being worked on something for you that you can't even be bothered to attend. Very, 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 very clear qualms and reasons to be upset. So for one of my notes, she did this for him, and that's why she's hurt. Though it seems like if it wasn't for him, she might be a little bit less upset by it. And I said, secondly, so does Amelia work for Jack in some capacity? Is she employed under House and Company? Which, that's an interesting development to forget. Amelia does work for the company. Jack is her boss, but she works in charitable causes and fundraising. So she puts together like events for charity, trying to get, the company more money for investors and benefiters and things for donations and stuff, because she helps out kids. That's what she likes to do. And Jack makes some more comments about Amelia. He says, what else do you have to do? You spend all day in the house with Soul to tend to your every waking need. I spend all day at the office to pay for it. And you're bitching about a little benefit. And this is an interesting thing about Jack's point of view, his perception. This is what he thinks Amelia's purpose is. She's supposed to fill her role. You play her wife, he earns the money. I said, you would think he's repaid in sex. You know, this is my first, again, rereading it through. I haven't read it in a while. I said, well, we haven't gotten an inkling about a sex life between the two of these characters. I'm saying, so what, my main question here at this point in the novel is, what does Jack get out of pissing off Amelia? You know, you would think he pissing her off and they're playing their parts and he's repaid in more sex, something like that, specifically from her. But that's not the case, and that's probably why he cheats. Furthermore, Amelia says, you delegate work to 100 people. She says, I don't want to do it, but I do. I know it's hard for you to believe, Jack, but I do have things I'd rather be doing with my time. Talking about wasted time. Jack wasted her time. She's pissed off about it. Say, further development, as I asked her earlier, does she work for the company? She does work for the company in my notes. I was like, she puts in hours planning, weeks planning for something. She's painstakingly putting in time for events that Jack doesn't even show for. Clear-cut animosity between the two of them. And the rest of the chapter kind of just hits more back and forth, quid pro quo. She tells him, don't come to my bed. You smell like cheap hotel soap. And Jack makes a comment. He's like, it's endearing how much. Well, he finds it endearing about how she thinks that Amelia can control him because he's a big man and he doesn't answer to no woman. Yeah, Jack's a big alpha male. I don't answer to a woman. Wow. He's a bitch, basically. He's a little bitch, and it's very clear that he's a little bitch. But he is, we're getting his perspective. But that was chapter 3. So we set the scene for chapter 2 with the lovely couple of Laura and Caton. And then we further perpetuate that point with the even lovelier couple between Jack and Amelia. So we have the standard set. So let's move to chapter 4. Chapter 4, we get more of Jack's POV. He makes this comment. Over the past few months, he had let go of a lot of late night tiffs, early morning cold showers, over the phone discussions about things that didn't need discussing. Amelia was going through a rebellious phase, it seemed, and it was starting to show. And so he expects absolute obedience from his wife, as if these facts aren't obvious already. I said he's a pig, an asshole, and a control freak. I was like, so he thinks women only have one purpose, which is fucking true. He wants his wife to play his wife. He's one of them. I make a comment about that later, but furthermore, he says righteousness evident in every word. His mother had her own ideas about how to get Amelia back in line, but Jack knew his wife. He knew exactly how far he could and couldn't push Amelia to get what he wanted from her. So he's abused her long enough to know her limits. And then I asked the question, has he pushed her too hard before? I said, or was Amelia a lot less rebellious in the past? Which both those answers will be questioned. Both those questions will be answered later on in the story. But the rest of this chapter is just kind of him being a pig. Then we get to the latter end of the chapter, where Jack proposes a proposition for Caton. Now, this proposition is, he psychoanalyzes his wife to get her to behave in the manner that he finds most desirable. I said it's like asshole bingo. I said he's the definition of, I want a woman to give you my space while still managing to be like a dick at every single turn, which is true. Because he goes to this whole mental thing of, okay, Amelia does this, she doesn't like that, she doesn't do, to try and just get her to behave in a manner that he likes. Like, it's so pathetic. Like, it's such weirdo behavior. It's such like fucking strange Stockholm syndrome fucking behavior from fucking Jack. Like, it's weird. He's weird. And the consensus that he comes up with, the rest of what chapter 4 establishes, is he thinks Kaiten is like the best woman for this job. And I make a comment about it. He enlists Kaiten to get his wife back in line. He talks about the gentle nudge of getting Amelia to be obedient and otherwise the desirable to Jack again. And he thinks Kaiten is the key to that. He says Amelia does a lot of events, does some charity work. He answered, mostly would help you take care of things for me. So he poses this idea as, you're going to be working for my wife, but also working for me. This is an interesting dynamic. Kaiten is obviously skeptical because she doesn't trust Jack. He has not given her a fucking reason to. And he was overselling the idea, which made her even more skeptical. He tries to make it seem like she's working for Amelia, but Jack knows at the end of the day they're both working for him, and Kaiten is off put by that because she doesn't like working for Jack. Jack tries to sweeten the deal. And there's this quote where he says, well, Jack settled further in his chair, fingers threading before him. You've made it clear you have no desire to climb on top here, so to speak. The unconcealed eye roll of Kaiten confirmed she was the perfect person for the position in question. He said, since you're low level, the company won't miss you. So there's just blatant insubordination and disrespect from both parties. Excuse me, I bumped my mic. And it seems like Kaiten is a very special case to Jack. The fact he allows his behavior to exist is very interesting, but it seems like his curiosity and unwavering libido is the saving grace for Kaiten, which is true, because I think if she were any other woman and he wasn't as attracted to her, she might not fucking have a job. And he makes this comment about he might have to fire her to find somebody a lot more malleable. And I have a note here that says she's uncontrollable. She's a force Jack can't step over and move out of the way. I said, so he enlists her to help Amelia in hopes that Kaiten can move her into obedience. To me, I found it kind of a strange plan. But then I realized later on that the plan is more so for Jack. Well, we'll get there. And Jack makes this wonderfully eloquent comment, because Kaiten asks, why me? Why can't I do it? He says, because you're the only woman at this office who hasn't had my cock in her mouth. Which is, we just love. Then he bribes her. She's making $15 an hour on the wage for Halston and Company. And Jackie Boy says, I'll pay you $5,000 a month. That stops Kaiten. Okay. And Jack, further perpetuates the point by saying, my wife can be difficult to work with. He's trying to, downsize, make it seem like the job, is a little bit harder, trying to debate Kaiten into taking the job. And Kaiten repeats, your wife? Jack says, she's a hormonal cunt. I just wish someone would pay me to live with her. Wonderful, as we love. So that's the premise for the first half of chapter 4. Setting the motion and scene. Jack he's scheming, he's planning. He wants these bitches together so he can piss both of them off. Basically, we continue further into chapter 5. Chapter 5 is reassurance from Kaiten to Laura. She's telling her nothing's gonna happen to me. I'm gonna be fine. I don't really have to worry about it. Trying to more convince herself, because Laura is rightfully worried. The main point, you're gonna be working at his house. You have a sort of power when you're behind company doors, even though it is Jack's company. You have rights set underneath you as an employee there, but in his house, and Kaiten is very, it's not like that. It's gonna be fine. Like, it's gonna be fine. And then here's why we get the reason why she doesn't quit Halston and Company. She says, even if the pay barely qualified as a living wage, Laura spent every single one of her day doing something of value. She does. I think she works with mission kids. Pretty sure. I think so. Kate spends her days doing grunt work for grunt pay. She didn't really need Laura to understand. She just needed Laura to accept her decision and to have one person who had her back as she prepared to enter the den of a legitimate and unapologetic lion. So Kate's already made her decision by this point in chapter 5. She's already decided, I'm gonna go do this job. I need this $5,000 a month. It's just to work with his wife. I need this. So we get that plan set in motion. Okay. We get back to Jack's perspective at the second part of chapter 5. You know, he's in the middle of numbers. Kane comes in. She accepts the job. He makes this comment about, how money seems to work for the little people. Little people meaning the common folk. Him and Amelia make comments about, oh, you're a little person. That's part of the little people. Meaning you're not a 1%er. You're not rolling in cash like me, okay? That's what that means. And he offers to give her a 6-month contract just in case she doesn't want to get out of it. So they sign. They basically shake. Kaden bargains for more money. She asks for $7,500 a month. Jack obliges, and he that's the plan. He gets set in motion. By the end of chapter 5, we know that Jack has got Kaden to go work for his wife, but he has not told his wife. Okay. We also get by the end of chapter 5 this very, very omnipresent threat. This idea of the BRC, who are like, if you fucking seen The Wolf of Wall Street, they're like the people that invest bitches' finances and shit, in large companies and whatnot, trying to see if you're doing everything legitimate. And there is a quote at the end of the chapter 5 where it says, the fucking lot of them are like vultures, too scared to make their own kills, always looking for meat on bones picked clean. Wanting to find out what they wanted this time, he cursed the piss poor timing, wishing the universe would let him enjoy the moment he was about to turn his wife's life into a living hell. That is the man that we have in this fucking book. Chapter 6. This is the first contact and interaction between Kate and Amelia in this chapter. I was like, with the presence of Jack there. But this is their first contact. So this is also Amelia's perspective. First instance we get of Amelia's perspective. And Amelia has this quote. She plays along with Jack's like happy homemaker. So she says, watching Jack the entire time for any indication as to why he was acting the part of the caring husband. But by the time Jack finally slid between the sheets on the other side of the bed, his "good night, darling" skidding over the line from patronizing into utterly absurd, Amelia still had no idea as to why he was setting the stage. She only knew that it was best to avoid him. I said it's so fucking cursed because the fact she knows that her husband is bullshitting just by his behavior, that's awful. Oh shit, I bumped my mic. I'm so sorry. I keep doing that. I'm so sorry. So it's a mess. It's such a mess. So I mentioned this name earlier, but Soul is their house worker at the palace, the Holston Palace at their home. Soul is a worker who kind of functions as Amelia's kind of only friend in this entire novel. You're gonna learn Amelia is a little bit of a hermit, and she is a little bit isolated. And Soul is kind of like a shoulder for her to always lean on, cry on, and whatnot. So I love Soul in this novel. I do. She's a secondary character. She's probably like my favorite secondary character in the entire novel. But the rest of chapter 6 comes to the two meeting. Okay. So, they're fucking in the kitchen having breakfast. Amelia is trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with Jack. What is this man planning? What is behind his brain? What's going on? And come to find out, we get a ding dong at the doorbell. Okay. Kaden walks into the house. Amelia's like, who the fuck is this? Who is this? She has this quote, eyes locking on vibrant green as the stranger looked up. Amelia watched the youthful image come to a sudden stop across the kitchen and took in the demure business casual. The woman could have been there for a college admission interview or for a visit with her grandmother. Amelia wasn't sure why either would be directed to her. So, conniving Jack is conniving. He didn't tell Amelia that Caden would be working underneath him. Knowing that going about it this way just further perpetuates the power that he has over her. Like, no, I can just put people to work with you and you have to fucking deal with it. That's the shit he likes to play. And it makes Amelia feel trapped in this sense. She's like, I can't even fucking ask the people who I want to work with, and we get more details about that later. But here is Amelia's and Caden's first interaction. Hi, the woman quietly greeted. Hello. Amelia returned guardedly. Who are you? Caden, the woman replied. Should that mean something to me? Amelia questioned. And we love. Oh, God. I said Jackie's probably clapping his fucking feet at Amelia's discomfort, which is probably true. His bitch ass probably over here creaming and screaming. Anyway, Jack comes here and he's being a fucking asshole. And he's like, Caden, you're right on time. And, he does this shit where he's like, well, you said the workload was too much for you to handle, so I hired you an assistant. Basically baiting Amelia into having some sort of gratitude for him for his kind and benevolent actions, even though we know and the audience knows that he's doing this for power and control and to be a fucking asshole. It's just so, he is just so, so we continue further, and the interaction is about as lovely as you think it would be. Jack does this like faux innocence, like, I thought you would be pleased. Jack didn't even attempt to sound genuine because he likes to do that shit where he is so much of an asshole that he can't even try to hide it anymore. And he makes this comment about how I said earlier how he clearly needed an assistant. He wants the gratitude. I said, i.e., Jack goes to the trouble to fucking piss Amelia off and also assert more control over her. She's not even in charge of people in any capacity. And Jack has just dropped Caden down next to Amelia and is practically saying, behave and be grateful. I didn't have to help you. That is the purpose of this fucking scene, of the reason why he did this. Because he's saying, oh, you do what I tell you to do. You do what is asked of you, and you fucking say thank you for it. And Amelia is just supposed to sit here because Jack is technically helping her, and he's manipulating her, and she's supposed to sit here and just be like, oh, okay, thank you for giving me help that I kind of in a roundabout way asked for, but you gave it to me anyway, so now I have to be gratuitous. I have to show you some gratitude. And she's pissed off. She's pissed off about it, rightfully fucking so. So we continue on, and the rest of the chapter is just more back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They have this wonderful interaction where Jack says, Amelia starts off with saying, get rid of her. Jack says, I can't. Here's a contract. Amelia says, I didn't ask for help. And Jack says, no, but you got it. And now you have nothing to complain about. So get off my back, you bitch. Stop complaining to me about work. I got you an assistant. Now go run along while I earn us money and play the husband. You go be a wife. That's what he says. That's what he's saying. And it's so. I hate this man. I have more notes that I have some interesting features about here. Amelia's assessing Caden, her face. And she says tension marring her features. That's what the fucking woman says. This woman was still attractive in an unassuming way, as if he tried, but not too hard. Aware enough of her looks that being regularly hit on couldn't come as a surprise, but not so aware she expected to get perks out of it. So just a little happy medium. But what I was saying was it was interesting that you were looking at her face like that. Amelia, this doesn't seem straight. It seems a little LGBT of you, not typical. Oh, This is where I make a comment about this technically being a toaster oven novel. If y'all aren't aware, in lesbian novels, Sapphic novels, there's a tag. It's actually tagged in the lesbian review. There's a tag, and there's a thing called a toaster oven. A toaster oven is a quote unquote converting heterosexual. This is a straight or dating men with a Sapphic. Excuse me, involved, and that is kind of more the premise of the novel, is the sense of converting somebody into lesbianism, quote unquote, because there's no way to do that. If you were gay then, you are gay now, you just didn't know it. But yeah, it's called a toaster oven. This one isn't your typical kind, as we usually get the Sapphic to be the one with the main perspective here, and Caton has the main perspective, but we also get the Sapphic to be the one who is the aggressor. And in this case, Caton is not. You're going to learn further on in the novel that she is not the main aggressor at all. So it's not your typical toaster oven, like, I'm seeking this person out, this person is casual. We don't really even get any instances of Amelia talking about her sexuality or her interest in women. We just start to see them become attracted to one another, which sometimes I appreciate, because sometimes toaster ovens can be frustrating for me, because that denial can run very, very hard and very long, and I'm like, damn, this shit is cutting into my fucking spirit. But we don't get that here. We get something a lot more, yeah. But the rest of chapter 6 ends with them meeting one another, not really liking one another, and Amelia puts these expectations onto Caton, because she's trying to figure out what can I have this woman do for me here. You know, she finds out that Caton works in data for Halston and Company, so she takes her down to the basement of their fucking house. She takes her down to the basement, and she's like, "Oh, these are all these bank records and stuff that Jack stored, but we don't have room for them anymore." And Caton was saying there has to be at least like 5,000 like crates of just data and everything over there. And Amelia's like, go through it all. Like, go through it all, organize it all. That's her task. So chapter 7 starts with fucking Caton just organizing files in the house, because that's what she's been doing. It's her first day, and it's implied that she kind of likes the work because it's busy work, but she goes down there to just fucking organize files, and that's what Amelia has her do. She has a lot of thoughts about Amelia during this time, but we'll get more into those a little bit later. But there's some very good quotes in chapter 7, one of which is she's talking about the cameras in the basement, and she says, one shiny eyeglass led to the next and the next, like a troop of a Cyclops guardian watching over the indiscretions of the rich and powerful. And her, of course. Caton couldn't forget that. You know. this chapter 6. But we also get in chapter 7 the inkling of a relationship beginning to sprout between Soul and Caton. It's very clear that they kind of see eye to eye, because they're both the help, and in essence, in a world of privilege and wealth and money. You know, Caton kind of sees Soul as his ally, because she's like, you know, you're doing what you can around this house to ignore everything. As you know, with most house workers back in the day, they heard everything, but they didn't say shit, and that's Soul. So, you know, I like Caton's relationship with Soul, and that prevails. That continues on. That's basically chapter 7, is her getting introduced. It's a house tour, and then we get the first inclination of Amelia's daughter and Jack, and she is a player in the novel that comes up a lot later on in the plot. But her name is Celine, and we don't get much on her, but she's introduced in chapter 7, Celine. Furthermore, we kind of get a little bit of an inkling that Caden is attracted to Amelia, which she's fucking Catherine Zeta-Jones, so how could you not be? But yes, attraction is there. Chapter 7 ends with just icy behavior between the two of them. I have more thoughts and notes on the icy behavior, but there's general animosity coming from both parties here, and it's very clear that the relationship is going to start off as a rocky one, and rocky it is, because chapter 8 begins with kind of time skipping. So this author does a very good job at time skipping through events, kind of alluding to monotony and just things that come second nature. So, you know, she continues working at the Halston place. She's working in the basement. She's assembling the files. She's it's just more of Caden's insight on Amelia. And we get this wonderful quote, Caden analyzing Amelia's looks. It goes as follows. Amelia was beautiful. That was an undeniable fact. But Caden had been around plenty of beautiful women. She'd even dated her share. Physical attraction simply didn't explain the way every time she happened upon Amelia unexpectedly, Caden felt her mouth go dry, her heart race, and the immediate desire to find something to say that would make Amelia see her as less of a burden. She really thought she had grown out of being intensely attracted to people who treated her like a nuisance, pattern of behavior. But by her 30th birthday, she had thought she'd grown out of the senseless attraction periods, and it was rather irritating to discover she still could be dominated by her hormones at the worst possible time. So there's attraction, and there's this introduction of Caden being into people who treat her like shit. Now, if that isn't foreshadowing for this novel, we'll get there. You'll see. You'll form your own opinions about what the exact dynamic is. But I'm just gonna say I warned you, and it's there, and it's contextualized. Her being into people who treat her like shit. So, furthermore, we prevail. We go further into that phase of monotony and a routine. She comes in, goes to the basement, barely sees Amelia. She comes in, goes to the basement, barely sees Amelia. She comes in, goes to the basement, barely sees Amelia. There's a part in this chapter where Jack comes out of nowhere. So Jack kind of serves as this omnipresent threat antagonist in the plot. You know, regardless of how far Caden can get into her routine, she's still working for this man. She's still at his house. She's still here, and she still cannot rid herself of his presence. Okay? That's basically how chapter 8 continues until we get to this wonderful part where Jack comes on to Caden in the goddamn kitchen. And we get this lovely, lovely quote from Amelia saying, "Jesus Christ, Jack." Amelia's voice cut in before she could fire. And for the first time, Caitlin was truly happy to hear it. Could you at least not fuck her while I'm in the room? Because Jack is teasing Caden. He's like making these like, what's up with you not letting me touch you? Let me touch you. And Caden's like, I'm about to throw this hot ass coffee on your fucking face. Get the fuck away from me. Amelia cuts in. Obviously, the position looks very compromising, but Caden does not like that fact. She doesn't like that Amelia sees her as somebody who's trying to fuck her husband. Now, the reasons why, that there's a lot. I mean, I don't think I would want to be fucking up my job with a woman that I'm working for by her thinking I'm fucking her husband. But also, it does not help if you are very attracted to said woman in the equation and you are not attracted to her husband and you are also gay. A lot of things set in motion, but we get this series of events Amelia is walking away after dismissing Caden after what she saw. It's a squabble. Caden makes this realization. Watching her walk away, though, she couldn't let Amelia put her into bed with Jack either, even if it was only in her mind. She can't stand Amelia thinking about her fucking Jack in this way, even if she has no reason to prove her worth, no reason to say, hey, I'm not doing this, no reason to make Amelia believe her. She chases after her. She chases after her and she touches Amelia. She says, I'm not sleeping with Jack. I've never slept with your husband. Okay? Caden willed Amelia to believe her, and there was a flicker. For an instant, Amelia's icy expression thawed, and Caden could see beyond the deep gray haze into the depths and shadows of dark brown eyes. Maybe whatever world laid inside Amelia wasn't as desolate and unwelcoming as it first appeared. I said it's a shame that this quote-unquote bonding has to come at the expense of Jack's fuck shit, but this is the first semblance of touch, attraction, and the layers of Amelia's personality being revealed, coming as Caden's just sheer gall, balls. Girls got balls. And that's kind of the rest of how the rest of the first half of the chapter goes. She continues to fucking go downstairs into her basement after the ordeal. So after Jack practically sexually assaulted her, she touches Amelia. It's a strange, crazy ordeal that's going on, and she's mulling over in her head, and Caden's like, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck am I doing? What's happening? How am I doing this? And Amelia just comes down to watch her. Caden's working in the basement, and she sees Amelia's presence, and she's just watching her. And there's this wonderful quote, once again, just having these wonderfully, really, really funny, obscure lines that Lashea puts in the novel. And she says, maybe it was the thrill of the command. A blue-collar peep show, entertainment for a wealthy woman who had never had to dirty or dry out her hands. It's such a good way to describe something like that. It's very funny, but also it's a little bit of a jump from Caden's perspective. We don't know if Amelia had never had to dry her hands, or we don't know if she's always been wealthy. So just a little bit of Caden for you. Oh god. And then there's this exchange between the two of them. Caden's like doing the files or whatever, and she drops them everywhere. Okay, it's a cry for help. It's a cry for help, and she keeps looking at Amelia, who's looking at her, embarrassing herself further. She says before masochistically shifting her gaze to the doorway and Amelia again. So she's acknowledging the fact that she shouldn't be looking, but also can't stop herself. Lots of impulse control problems for Miss Caden. Then Caden puts up this show. She says, my mom drives a school bus. My father's a janitor. Like, so if you think I'm somehow humbled or humiliated by being paid over $7,000 a month to file, you should know I'm not that proud. Once again, justifying herself to Amelia without really, really, really needing to. Without really needing to, but she's doing it. Why is she doing it? We know why. We know why. But chapter 9 starts. If I keep bumping this goddamn mic, I swear to God, I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm doing my best. Chapter 9 starts, and chapter 9 is super important chapter. Also, Caden's perspective. Yeah, Caden's perspective. Yes. Wonderful exchange we have. It's further perpetuating the point of Caden and Amelia having this very, very rocky dynamic. Okay. Amelia is cold, okay? It's frigid, okay? Hyperthermic at this point. She describes Amelia having these very unreadable eyes. They remind me of like Mikasa from fucking Attack on Titan, just that very dull gaze. That's how I see the way Amelia looks at Caden. there's a point where she walks in to Amelia's office and Amelia just turns and looks at her. Like, doesn't even say anything. I don't know why, but I was like crying, laughing at the thought of that. Can you imagine just like walking into a room and somebody is just looking at you like, like, that's so funny. That's so fucking funny. But yes, so there's this wonderful interaction that they have. It goes as follows. Kaden asks for the afternoon off because she has an event to go to. Amelia says, I don't care. Amelia responded, dropping her gaze back to her desk. Kaden says, I'll work until the morning. I wouldn't have to leave until like 2. Amelia responds with, what part of I don't care was confusing to you? Like, just hitting that point. And Kaden snaps. She does. She gets pissed off. She's like, I don't want to take this anymore. I don't have to take this anymore from this woman. So she says, why are you such a cold bitch? Knowing the question left her lips was heading to a place from which there was no return, but unable to care. Ponders the question. Amelia promptly responds with, excuse me? To which Kaden further hits down, your heart must be hypothermic. Okay? So they're squabbling in this chapter. They're hitting off one another. Kaden tries to run this game of you're not a mystery. You know, you're just a girl who got married by a rich dude, you know. Amelia fires her. Kaden says, I figured. And then she chases after her. So she gets fired and Kaden's walking through the house. Amelia is coming up from behind. And she says, you think that's all I am, but you don't know me. Okay? You don't know me. And Kaden starts firing down on this point of Amelia's benevolence and degrading it. She's talking about how, you know how you treat people. How it doesn't have an effect on you, faulting her for her behavior and kind of getting mad at Amelia for treating her like shit, which is understandable, but Amelia cracks. She says it's not true. Just because I'm not screaming at the top of my lungs or bursting into tears doesn't mean that I don't feel. I am not. She doesn't like her morality being tested. And I made a note about how she has actual emotions. Kaden returns that by saying, frigid, dead inside. She says, please, I have never met anybody so completely devoid of emotion. You could hit a kid and drive over the body. I could walk around here naked and you wouldn't even be embarrassed. You would probably just ask why I didn't have a banker box in my hands. To which Amelia replies, let's see, take off your clothes. Now what the fuck? Jesus. Yes, this is where we go. Chapter 9, baby. This is where we fucking go. Okay, this is where we're going. Stay with me here, Baddies. Stay with me here. She takes off her clothes. Okay? She takes off her clothes. She's standing in the middle of the foyer, okay, stripping for Amelia. Amelia's watching her. And it's just this very, very intense eye contact that they're sharing, okay? Kaden thinks this thought. She says cold. It was the term she had associated with Amelia since she first met her. But the heat of Amelia's body and her gaze contradicted Kaden's initial classification with a vengeance, turning everything Kaden was sure she knew on its head so that Kaden knew nothing except for what she felt. And it prompted her to act without consulting her rational mind, meaning she's stripping. She strips down to her, I think her undergarments. And Amelia starts to walk away, but she walks up the stairs and sits at the 4th step, turns to Kaden and goes, did I tell you to stop? To which Kaden continues to strip and continues to take off her clothes, and I'm having a fucking aneurysm because we're 9 chapters in and I'm getting hit with a lot right now. So much is going on. And fucking do we get a perspective shift? do we get? Oh yeah, just a little bit of a little bit of Amelia's insight. This is the thing with the perspective, is that it's third person, but we all kind of get insights into how they feel about one another. It's not completely third person omniscient, but it's also not completely third person limited, because there's points in Jack's perspective where we see Amelia's thoughts, vice versa, and there's points in Kane's perspective, just like right now during this quote, Amelia wasn't lying. She could be affected. She's acknowledging the attraction that Amelia has over her. We see a little bit of Amelia in that perspective. So Kane's stripping, but they get busted in. Soul walks in. And she's like, damn, it's like ice cold water in the veins. And that's kind of how the chapter fucking ends. That's how it ends. Chapter 9 ends like that. And they stripped. So chapter 10 begins with very, very, very interesting implications set in mind, because Kaiten just fucking stripped for Amelia within like the first few weeks of working for her, or like in the first week, because she got fed up with her. It's interesting how we went from her berating her for being an emotionless bitch, marble statue of a woman, into you stripping for her in her fucking foyer and getting very aroused from the fact. But we prevail. Chapter 10 begins with more of Kaiten's masochism and Amelia's control tendencies. Yes, these control tendencies. She made this woman wait. Just straight up for the next chapters. It's just continuous. Her touching Kaiten and being very cold, but not acknowledging what happened. Nobody talks in this book. Nobody speaks to one another. Nobody talks. So chapter 10 is all about Kaiten kind of handling the fallout of stripping for her boss. We have this wonderful, wonderful quote that she says, Kaiten's eyes at last flitted to her, albeit fleetingly. Amelia felt more than one emotion she hadn't felt in some time lurch within her. Fear, desire, and something she couldn't identify beyond the disturbing sensation. That was even more. Okay. In this chapter also, we get some more of Jack. Jack thinking that Amelia fired Kaiten because she wasn't there in the morning, because she was reeling from the aftermath of stripping for her. But we find out that Kaiten did not quit, because she's a masochist. And chapter 11 begins. Back to Jack's perspective for chapter 11. So we build up a lot of this tension. The heat, it's sparking between these two women. Nothing's getting resolved. Animosity. Jack's perspective. So nothing gets solved. We learn more about Jack. In this chapter, we get introduced to another secondary character, a man by the name of Marcus Slater, who works with the BRC. Unconscious threat flowing into the chapter. We learn some shit's going on within Jack's business. That's the purpose of chapter 11. Marcus Slater coming in as a person who's investigating Jack, but we know it's not the first person to do that. In this case, it seems like Jack has been able to get away with shady behavior in his business for quite some time. And he kind of brushes off Marcus, but Marcus is like, no, I'm not the one. It is not me. I know my way around the law and whatnot, and I know what I'm doing. That's the impression that Marcus gives in chapter 11. Chapter 12. Oh, chapter 12. Okay. Chapter 12. Fuck shit continues. Amelia just pretends that like nothing happens. She describes it as weeks going on of nothing happening, of her just walking on eggshells around Amelia the entire time, just reeling from the mess that continues to happen, continuing to mull over the thought that she stripped for her in her foyer, and thinking Amelia's gonna do something, but nothing happens for weeks. until she's working in the basement. Okay? She's working in the basement. Filing. Quote, in the instant it took Kaiten to glance back down at the pile she held, Amelia flattened against her, out of sight and without the sound at her back. And that Kaiten couldn't ignore. The rush of Amelia's breath stirring the hair at the back of her neck. Her smell was invasive. The faded remnants of expensive shampoo and soap masked by the earthy smell of sweat. It should have been a turnoff, but goddamn if Amelia's sweat couldn't have been its own high-dollar fragrance. So we get a sex scene. A sex scene that solves nothing. First sex scene comes in the form of chapter 12. That's what chapter 12 is. Talking about how they had gone weeks without talking about her stripping for her in the foyer. And then without anything, Kaiten gets that Gluck 9000 from fucking Amelia. And I'm going to go fucking insane. Chapter 13 starts and we just continue on. We get a shift with her location. So she's working in the basement doing the files. She learns in chapter 13 that Amelia has moved her upstairs to her personal office. Any guesses on why, ladies and gents? Any queries in the audience about what's going on? This continues. Just tension. Amelia is conniving. She brushes up against her. She touches her. But it's all under this guise of accidental. Like, oop, I didn't mean to touch you. Or I'm going to slide behind you when you're working. I'm going to lean over your desk and let my hair fall so you can smell it. Just methodical in the way she is slowly cooking Kaiten from the inside out. Chapter 13 is torture. Chapter 14 comes with more torture. Days turning into weeks since Kaiten was touched in the basement. Amelia drags this shit out. Completely perpetuating the point. I have the power here. Any sort of contact between them, any sort of sex is going to happen because Amelia is willing it to happen. Chapter 14 continues with this notion. We learn more about Amelia as a employee, the kind of worker that she is. She is charming when it comes to getting donations, investors. She knows how to play this part for the company and for herself. She knows what she wants. She wants to get this money for these kids. She wants to continue to do these charitable causes, and she knows the ways to do it. So there's this notion set in chapter 14 of Amelia taking Kaiten to this opera house for investors. Okay? And that's what chapter 15 is this notion of her at the opera house. Now, Kaiten goes, obviously, and we get more in essence of Amelia and the character that she is able to put on. The happy, perfect wife that she is able to portray, the face that she can just slip on in an instant when it comes to draining investors of donations for charitable causes. So we get this essence as we learn. Amelia is very, very good at her job. Very good. Even if she wasn't Jack's wife, even if she wasn't Jack's wife, she would be good at her job. If this was her job without any of the relationship implications and whatnot, she would be very, very, very effective and good at her job. And that's what chapter 15 is. We get more of this opera house time. Kaiten is there, but she's still mulling over the fact that she's sleeping with her boss, but also she doesn't know when it's going to happen again. And they're in a press box at the opera, and the opera's going on during chapter 15. And Amelia starts touching her in this chapter. She does. She starts just being herself, really. Chapters 15 and 16 cover the opera house. And they're in the press box, and Kaiten is kind of just a puppet for Amelia to touch and everything. She allows her to do this to her, and then she feels discarded when Amelia just gets up and walks away. Because there is no sense of intimacy in the touches. This is purely feels transactional between the two of them, this relationship. And this is how it begins. Their sex life at this point in the novel from chapter 16 is the fact that sex feels as a currency between the two of them, as a way of bonding but not getting to know each other. It's just Amelia touching Caton because she has the power to do so and she wants to. And that right there is why this infidelity and this romance is so different, because we usually don't get this more malevolent force that sex can play within novels. We see sex as this culmination of love and feelings, but this is not solving anything in this book. Sex is not the answer. It's not solving anything, and yet it continues to happen. In chapter 15, we lead up to it. Chapter 16, we get more sex. And in chapter 17, we see Caton finally sinking back into this role of her being, oh, I'm allowing myself to be treated like a nuisance, treated like shit. We have this first quote here. Maybe Caton liked to be mistreated. Maybe it suited her. There was simply no other explanation as to why, in the presence of Laura, her girlfriend, a genuine human being who was attentive, communicative, and open, she could think of nothing but a woman who was conceited and detached, and the majority of her communication through stares and poisonous remarks. That just goes to show they don't talk to each other. Amelia and Caton, they don't talk to each other. What they do is ignore each other. Amelia snaps at her. Caton allows it, and then they have sex. And that's been their dynamic so far within these first two sex scenes that we receive. We go further with chapter 17, getting some more exposition into Amelia. This is where we find out that she's Venezuelan and she visits her family. And Caton feels a little bit of a sense of, oh shit, this fucking hurts that she's not telling me about it for whatever reason, even though you don't have a claim on her. But that's besides the point. We get to this this ending part in chapter 17 where Caton's kind of drunk at work. She's drinking, and she calls Amelia to kind of like piss her off in a way. And we have this wonderful interaction between the two of them where she says, "You are drunk, aren't you?" Amelia asked. "Just a little," Caton admitted. "Were you drunk when you got home from work?" Amelia's voice softened, almost caring. It sounded like a lie. "Why?" Caton's jaw went tight, and she felt the sudden need to protect herself. "Do you want to reprimand me for getting into your stash?" "No." "Then I guess it doesn't matter, does it?" Caton tossed out. But the question went unanswered for the both of them. "So, do you think you can handle it?" Amelia returned to the topic at hand. Previously to talk about a dinner party, Caton responds, "It's a fucking dinner party, Amelia." She snapped. It's a mess. So she plans a dinner party on Amelia's behalf while talking to Amelia on the phone, drunk. Chapter 18 is the homecoming of Amelia. This is where I have another quote. This is actually Amelia's perspective, chapter 18. And I have a note here about chapter 18 because we get her going to Venezuela. And then chapter 18 is her coming back. And I have some thoughts. I wish we would have gotten more of her familial dynamic. I wish we could have seen what she was like with her family, to the difference of how she is like now. I understand why the author didn't do it, because in general we see more of Amelia's arc and her blossoming towards the end of the novel. We don't really get to see more of her personality, so I can understand why she didn't do it, but I still think it could have been nice just to see how she was outside of this very toxic, caustic, sex-drived boss that she is to Caton, because she's straight up, I don't talk to you, I fuck you, and then I move on and I do it again, and that's what we've been receiving for quite some time. But chapter 18 is her returning, and we get another interesting perspective from Amelia. She has this quote where she talks about how successful her husband is, how her daughter is in one of the best schools. We learn Amelia was poor from a young age. She says from nearly any vantage point outside her own, Amelia always ended up admitting to herself that in these moments, when gloom turned her pristine world into a dystopia, she had no right to sleepless nights. So she's tired of playing this wife role for Jack, obviously. We can tell that. She wants her daughter and her family, but she feels a sense of guilt for gloating and feeling bad for herself, despite the privileges her life has. So she's very much so caught into this mindset that Jack has given her, like, I have saved you in a way. I've saved your life. I have given you wealth beyond measures, a life with fortunes and privileges that you would never ever know if you were still in Venezuela. You should be grateful to me. And even though Amelia pushes back against Jack, those thoughts are still in her. And she cannot help but feel that guilt when she complains about the privileges of her life. She doesn't validate her feelings enough. But that's all I'll say on that. Chapter 18 continues. Nothing really much happens except this wonderful interaction where Soul kind of tells Amelia that Kaiten is scared of her. And this is interesting because it's highlighting the lack of self-reflection that Amelia has. Because she was like, what do you mean scared of me? I'm like, if you just took some context clues, maybe when existed outside of yourself, just a little bit, you would see what you're doing to this woman. But she doesn't, and she doesn't. But then the rest of the chapter is the dinner party that Kaiten planned for Amelia while she was in Venezuela. And Amelia calls Kaiten to the party. So she wasn't invited, but Amelia calls her to the party, and Kaiten comes when called. She sure does. She's on a date with Laura, and she comes when called. Yeah, she sure does. And again, stating this interesting dynamic in this toaster oven romance, where the straight, quote unquote, straight woman is the aggressor. She's the one who has the power. And in a way, Kaiten is coming when called out, beckoning, like, just whatever you need, I'm gonna be there, even despite being in a relationship, even despite not actually really liking Amelia, but she can't help what she feels, and Amelia makes her feel good, and that is the truth at hand. So she comes when called, and Kaiten tells her she was on a date. But she talks about how she needed her. Amelia says, I do. And then it's more sex. it's more sex. They have a sex scene where, you know, she goes to the dinner party and fucking Amelia's like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna have sex with you. Then she keeps her fucking panties at the end of this goddamn chapter, and I'm gonna need cardiac arrest because chapter 19 continues. And this is where we're entering this this interesting dynamic of, okay, we're gonna have sex for a while. I do recall this is the part in the novel where we're starting to have more sex in it. Chapter 19 has this interesting interaction between the two of them where Amelia asks her how she is, asks Kaiten how she is, and Kaiten thinks it's a trap. Because this is how little they have spoken to each other. This is how minuscule their conversations have been. This is how small their connection is, because everything that's doing is being through sex. Superficial, carnal, physical pleasure is the only thing that these two can find a common ground on. And we prevail. That is the rest of the chapter. We hit another sex scene in chapter 19, as I said. So we had 17 sex scene, 18 sex scene, 19 sex scene. I think there's one in 20 as well. We get to a point where we're having a lot A lot of sex. And we get an interesting line at the end of chapter 19 where Amelia says, "I'm not a prude." Kane goes, "I wouldn't know if you were. I don't know you." And Amelia says, "Do you want to?" And it's the first inclination that we get of something melting. But this is the sex scene in 19 where Amelia feels kind of inclined to allow Caden to gratify her. Yeah. Within these previous sex scenes, it had just been Amelia just giving, but more so we're getting to the point of her wanting to receive. And I recall in 20, it starts off the same, very tame, getting back into the swing of her working with Amelia. This is Caden's perspective. And Jack is in this this chapter, and he's trash talking Amelia in front of Caden while Amelia's upstairs, and Caden feels a lot of sense of anger towards that. And I think Caden would like to think it's because she doesn't like Jack, but we know it's because something else is brewing and something's happening, and she doesn't like the fact that she is hurting in that manner and feels that way. But we don't touch on that. But the rest of chapter 20 kind of continues to go. We get more of Soul as a kind of a mediator, being very aware of the relationship that Caden and Amelia has, but being a protector of it. As I said, houseworker, being in the household, kind of serving Jack and Amelia. She knows their patterns, their behavior, but she also knows everything about that goes on in that house. Just like when Caden arrived and she fucking saw her in the foyer stripping for Amelia, they have a conversation. Caden and Soul have a conversation where, Soul's like, I don't say anything. I ignore most stuff. And it kind of cements this point that Soul is a supporter of their weird, unorthodox relationship. By this point, every single sex scene, as I said, has been leading up to Amelia's sexual gratification. And we finally get her being gratified by Caden in chapter 20. We get full reciprocation, Caden touching Amelia. Amelia is very hesitant towards it, almost doesn't allow it to happen. But it happens. And it happens, but we get rejection. Because once the sex ends, we get a sense of panic from Amelia. And I'm pretty sure I wrote a note on it. Yeah, it's reality. Amelia can't hang with her emotions like that. She panics and pushes Caden out of the bed, discards her. And it's a problem. Because at this point, Caden is already developing things, feelings, wants, desires that she knows that she should not have, but she cannot help herself. Chapter 21. We get a little bit of an essence of Caden's familial life. It's something, she makes a passing comment about her family maybe coming from a list of alcoholics. Because she's drinking more often because of the stress that filled her life because of Amelia. And then chapter 21 starts with Caden at her apartment and Amelia showing up. And I'm going to go fucking crazy because this chapter is very interesting. And every single sex scene Caden and Amelia had thus far, they had not kissed. There had been no kissing. There had been the sense of intimacy had been starting to bleed in at this point. So they're touching more. Amelia allowed Caden to touch her in that way. But kissing had been off limits. Amelia comes to Caden's apartment in chapter 21 just to kiss her. And I know what this symbolizes. We know what this symbolizes. We know what this means. we'll get there. Hold on. Hold that thought. What I was worried about during this scene when I was reading it was Laura. Okay? She has a whole ass person that she's dating, and your boss is here fucking making out with you in your goddamn apartment. And, Amelia hardens when Laura shows up. Because she shows up. Because they're making out. And Laura shows up. And Amelia hardens immediately. You know, Kaiten makes this comment of, oh, I might have to leave because Amelia might need me. And Amelia goes, I don't need you. And she hardens up. And I have a note here. I saw what was happening here. And I hated it. In this sense, this kiss was an apology for their last hookup, for her kicking Kaiten out of the bed. And it's a promise for more intimacy. It's a promise to try, that she's trying, that she wants something, but she doesn't know what, and she wants it. And it's a problem because she's much more attached to Kaiten that she lets on, and she's tired of fighting the fact that she doesn't want to let her walls down. Because they were having sex on Amelia's terms because Amelia was in all of the power, because Amelia cannot stand to be vulnerable. And this kiss here is telling her she's tired of fighting that fact. But she finds out Kaiten lied about being in a relationship. Like Jack lies. She's cheating. Like Jack is cheating. And with the mixed signals, it's not fair at this point for Amelia to try to stake a claim on Kaiten, because that's what she is. She's trying to do it, and she's pissed off that Kaiten has somebody else, because even though Amelia is married, she doesn't have anybody, and Kaiten is becoming that person for her, and it's getting very, very crazy. So we get the first kiss in chapter 21, and chapter 22 we get more and more caustic behavior from Amelia. She makes that comment, I don't need you. That point is cemented in chapter 22. They're passing conversations, touches, interactions that could trend on flirting and titillation have cooled off. Amelia wants nothing anymore. She's avoiding her in a sense, completely and utterly showing her, like, I don't need you. I opened myself up to you in a very roundabout and weird way, but I opened myself up to you. You have another person. I gave myself to you, and you don't return that. And she's pissed off. And she's pissed off about it. And it was 2 weeks of this silence. 2 weeks. They have this holiday party that's coming on. Holidays are coming in the book. Amelia asks Kaiten to come. She says, well, Jack said you could come. Amelia replied, tacking on more carefully, I want you to come. Kaiten doesn't give. She says, I'm busy that night. Amelia says, then cancel. And she does. That line ends with, she would do as she's told. Once again, Amelia having all the power in this dynamic, completely having Kaiten wrapped around her goddamn finger in this fucking novel. And we're 22 chapters in, and we're seeing that it's just so obvious. So the holiday party begins. It's after New Year's. This is the first sense of like jealousy we get from Amelia, because they're at the holiday party. Amelia has on her I'm a $1 million wife, trophy wife, doing my thing. She sees Laura with Kaiten, face crack. She's pissed off. She has that claim. She's like, no, Kaiten's mine. Why am I pissed off at somebody who's not even mine? You want her to be yours. Cemented in this chapter. It continues. They're having a good time at the office Christmas party. Good time with the holidays and whatnot. Kaiten gets up to go get another drink. She's walking by one of the windows with the curtains. Amelia pulls her behind the curtain. We see the fucking reference to the title of the novel. She pulls her behind the curtain. We get this wonderful interaction where Kaiten is sitting behind the curtain, and she says, "What in the hell are you doing?" to Amelia. Amelia's features darkened as she stepped closer. She says, "Are you having fun?" Caden says, "I was." With the little people. Again, the reference. Yes, Caden countered with a smile only half forced. One guy even works in the mailroom. Yeah. And then I had a note. I said, Amelia's crazy because, oh, bestie. Amelia says, "You've been ignoring me during the night." Caden hadn't come up to talk. Caden hadn't come up to talk to her. She went to go get a drink with Laura first and started talking to the other coworkers. She hasn't made a point to go over and speak to Amelia. And Amelia noticed. Caden shoots back with, "You've been ignoring me for days." Smiling a little, Amelia eased towards Caden, fingers trailing up and down her arm. "Did that bother you?" she asked. Like fully acknowledging and aware of her behavior and how irrational it is. I recall the first sex scene we had with Amelia's perspective, because we got in sex scenes with both Amelia and Caden's perspective. I've just skipped over them because I can't talk about them on YouTube. But with Amelia's perspective, the first sex scene we get with her, she is not planning it. She is moving by impulse. She wants Caden in that moment, and Caden cannot defend herself to save her goddamn life, so she gets what she wants. And we learn in that essence that she's just flying by ear. So this interaction of her pulling her behind this fucking curtain and being jealous, acting like a jealous partner, I know is of Amelia's impulses. It's not of methodical planning. This is of her being pissed off and going to get what she thinks belongs to her, which is Caden. The chapter ends with a sex scene. Let me get to chapter 23. Chapter 23 is rarely uneventful. We get this sex scene where Caden is the aggressor. It's the first sex scene in which Caden starts something. She has this quote where she says, Amelia was about to be in a meeting. She doesn't miss meetings. Caden says, "Is it about your daughter?" Amelia answers, "No, Celine is in London." Caden says, "And there's no one who's more important than me." She's aggressing. She's the aggressor. She's pushing. She's recognizing the power that she has in the dynamic, realizing that, no, I have something that Amelia wants, but also Amelia's attracted to me. Amelia wants me. And that's what chapter 3 is saying. Like, they want each other. There is something brewing there that they both want, and it's the other one. Chapter continues with this quote. "You," she began, sliding her fingers inside the loop of Amelia's belt to pull her closer, "can have me wherever you want." That's not what that says. Excuse me. "You can have me whenever you want me. A point you have gone out of your way to prove on several occasions." Bodies bumping together. Caden reveled in the gasp she forced from Amelia's lips. "But you need to accept the fact that I want you too." Her hands came together at Amelia's waist. "And I am tired of waiting for space in your schedule." She's demanding. She's girl bossing. This is city girl moves. They're city girl moves. And they have sex. And it's something had changed. This is the first time they recognize something had changed. Amelia's looking at her with the light, without this caustic and angry attitude she had been looking at her with, because Caden was a manifestation of control that she doesn't have over her life. Amelia has gotten over that. She's looking at her with feelings, dare I say. Sex scene happens. Chapter 24 continues. We get Amelia's perspective, her acknowledging that she wants to stake a claim on Caden that she does not have, which is true. Chapter 24 is very uneventful again. We get a very, very interesting look into Amelia's psyche. She says, "Seeing Caden with somebody else, though no one even knew it was an affront to her, had gutted her in an instant. leaving her hollow in a way she realized only Kaiten can undo. Punishing Kaiten for having someone else despite her own very married situation was reflex, like I said, but forcing her way back into Kaiten's arms was even more impulsive and far more effective at filling those empty spaces. Of course, she would never tell Kaiten that. Why? Why would you not? Why would you not? Chapter 24, once again, rarely, very, very kind of uneventful. We get some interactions between Soul and Amelia. They have this like dinner scene where Soul makes them dinner and they're kind of talking about their lives. We learn that Kaiten is from Ohio. They're kind of having this small talk. I said small talk between the lovely couple who speak in exchanged orgasm and silent treatments, which is true because as far as we know, their general chemistry outside of sex is nil, 0 to none. But you know, we just get more. This is just exposition. These are conversations that they should have had before giving each other several orgasms. But obviously, we're just doing everything out of order. But then we get this interesting quote where Kaiten is asking when they're having dinner, "Are you going to treat me like you have been treating me, or are you going to treat me like this?" Meaning, are we going to have a talk over the implications of what we're doing? Are we going to speak about this? Are you going to treat me like shit? Are you going to continue to, or are you going to treat me like a person? Amelia has an interesting response. She doesn't respond because Jack comes in and he ruins everything. We're about to get some headway with their relationship, with how they feel about each other, some confirmation, because everything has been so up in the air lately. And Jack comes in. So we're stalled. Continue to be stalled. Chapter 25. Kaiten acknowledging that Amelia sort of feels a little interested in her, that there's something there, and she's fighting it, but she's also kind of acknowledging it. And it comforts her, but it terrifies her. There's an interesting dichotomy that's going on. And I remember they have this quote where she says, Kaiten's walking into the kitchen for her morning shift. Amelia's sitting in the kitchen. Amelia's sitting at the bar reading a newspaper and drinking her coffee in a relaxed fashion. I don't know why, but that one like stood out to me a lot. I said I think it might be my own domestic dreams. I said this in my notes, but I was like, I can see the sight of Amelia here very clearly. It brings a smile to my lips. The sight of a person desire just merely existing. I was like, I know that simplicity of this image is what Kaiten is craving out of the relationship. She wants something easy, and everything with Amelia has been hard, tumultuous, not in a semblance of anything nearing healthy. But she's staying, and we're gonna continue going. But we have chapter 25, rarely uneventful. Once again, we're getting into this routine of sex in these chapters. We learned that in 25, Amelia can play the piano. And there's these moments that they're beginning to have in these chapters when they're starting to gratify to each other that feel authentic, that feel okay, that feel like something that can be built off of one another. And Kaiten's acknowledging that. She's acknowledging Amelia wants her. She's married, but she wants her. And she is kind of torn up about the fact, really. But they're kissing, and 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 they're having fun, and they're playing the piano. And here comes Celine. Okay? If you didn't remember who Celine was, she is Amelia's daughter. We got introduced way back at the beginning of the book. She comes back in the novel as holiday break. She's home from her school. She goes to school in London, and she's home. And this begins the beginning of fleshing Amelia out more so as a character. We learn that her relationship with Celine is very strained, that Celine is materialistic, that she's her father's daughter in an essence, that she doesn't harbor the humility and the down-to-earth attitude that Amelia seems to embody. She is much more materialistic, a little bit more caustic, more rude. She's snappy. She doesn't like Amelia in the way that Amelia is worshiping her daughter, because we acknowledge in the book that Amelia is like largely unhappy, but Celine is like the only thing in the world that makes her genuinely happy. And Caden gets to see that. Caden gets to see that Amelia doesn't have it all figured out with her daughter, that the relationship is strained for a specific reason that we'll get into later. But yes, Celine comes back in the novel in chapter 25, and chapter 26 is more of this Amelia's perspective on her relationship with her daughter coming back home for her break. We learn more about her daughter. We learn about how back in the day they used to do everything together. They were really, really close. But events happened, which we will learn later, which I'm not going to tell you now, that forced her daughter to kind of look at her in this more different and resentful light that Amelia kind of just has to deal with. She can't sit here and change the way she is or change how her daughter sees her, so she endures and allows herself to have this very tumultuous relationship with her child, because this chapter has Amelia planning this shopping date with this horse-drawn carriage and like this whole mom-daughter day together that she really, really wants. Celine's not down for it. Celine's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. You're weird. I don't like you. She says, I hate you to Amelia. Amelia's like crying. Caden's there. She sees the entirety of the exchange. Celine goes off to go to the mall with her friends whatever, after telling her mom that she hated her, and it's a very, very, very toxic, bad exchange, and Amelia's affected by it. Caden is there. Caden comforts her. She kisses Caden, and Celine sees. She sees. This is the first essence we've gotten of an individual we know who, other than Soul, has seen Caden and Amelia together, that knows. And Celine's reaction is very teenage girl like. She's pissed off. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? I thought you liked Dad. Like, what's going on? And that's what chapter 26 ends with, Caden leaving so that she can get Amelia to try to repair the relationship that she has with her daughter. Because even though she finds out that her relationship with her daughter is strained, she knows that Amelia loves Celine. Caden knows that. And the chapter ends with Caden being like, you know what, I'm going to leave you alone, but you know what, you can call me when you figure this out with your daughter. Chapter 27 begins with Amelia having that talk with Celine about Caden. And we get an essence of Amelia defending Caden, because Celine calls her a slut. She says, who the fuck was that slut? You know, I'm grounded because I'm making out with that. I saw you making out with that slut. You know, Amelia grounds her. Celine gets pissed off. Amelia goes, don't call her that. She's not a slut. Don't call her that. And that the defense is, it's telling. You know, it's telling of lesbianism and Sapphic. Just bitches being gay together. And they kind of reach this headway, this common ground between the two of them, in which Celine figures out, oh no, my mom is happy with this woman. She is. She's happy. And it's something that even a teenage girl could see, to the point where she asks, is Amelia nice? Sorry, is Caden nice? Is she cool? Is she okay? Amelia says, yes, she's really nice. And it's kind of this unspoken understanding between the two of them that they want to try. You know, Amelia says that was the best conversation she's had with Celine in years. But we get an insight into how Amelia sees Caden in this chapter, and it is phrased absolutely gorgeously. It goes as follows. She couldn't explain to her daughter that she had watched Caden and found her mesmerizing, that she had challenged her and found her reactions exhilarating. Celine surely understood by now that her elevated status in society made people defer to her, that money made them blind, made them hold their tongues, that power made them fear and submit. Caden wasn't blind, she wasn't afraid, and God, she knew she couldn't hold her tongue. Amelia thought with a smile. And when Caton submitted, she did so by choice. At least, Amelia could believe that. And Caton's behavior seemed to prove it. Whatever else Amelia was feeling had no explanation in reality, not in hers. Celine asks, "Are you in love with her?" Amelia cannot answer. She cannot answer. But I think that non-answer is answer enough by this point, chapter 27 in the novel. But, the chapter ends with chapter 28. Once again, holiday break. Caton goes home to Ohio to go visit her parents. Amelia sends her this really, really nice gift basket. She doesn't really go through it, but she brings it to her house to go see her mom. And her mom is like, "Oh, who did this?" And she's like, "Oh, it's just my boss," kind of just brushing it off. Amelia sends her a note with this beautiful diamond necklace, and the note, all it says is, "Thinking of you." And it just fills Caton with these feelings and these thoughts. And by this point, she hasn't introduced Laura to her parents yet. So her parents don't know that she's dating somebody else. And she knows that her mom would be disappointed if she was dating a married woman, because Amelia is married. And it just kind of cements these points that Caton's lying because she's lying to Laura. She lies to her parents that everything is okay because they can see her behavior is off when she gets the note from Celine in the gift basket, when she gets the necklace from her in the gift basket, when her parents are asking, "Are those real diamonds in that necklace? Is that real? Are those real or what?" She's like, no, it's fine. I'm fine. And she's like, oh my God. It's getting real to her. The feelings that she's feeling, how badly she wants this with Amelia, it's getting real. And that's what chapter 28 is really all about. Chapter 29 begins, and we get back to Amelia's perspective. And it's at the end of break. We had a time skip. End of break. Celine's going back off to London. For the most part, it's pretty uneventful. Chapter 29. Both of them are back in town, and Kate invites Amelia over to her apartment. Now, this is the first time that they've done anything outside of the house, other than at the opera house when they had sex. But for the most part, it's been Caton going to Amelia's space, but it's now Amelia entering Caton's space. So you can see the steps that they're taking to get more intimate with one another, and how just a change in location of where they're going to have sex is very important to the contextualization and the character arcs for both of them. We continue on. The chapter continues. They have sex with each other. And they have this very, very, very important quote where Amelia has a conversation with Soul when Caton invites her over to her apartment. And Soul tells her, "If you want more, Amelia, you're going to have to give more." And that is the truth. No more showing up to her apartment to kiss her and randomly and then just leave. They're going to actually going to have to start talking. That's the main point in this novel that I'm crying at, is that they don't talk at all. It's just been sex and fighting and crossing lines that people don't know that they're there, breaking rules and conversations that you don't know that they had, and just sex, and there's no talking. And Soul tells Amelia, you have to give more if you're going to want more. If you're going to want the level of intimacy that you're craving from Caton, you're going to have to give more intimacy in general. So, we prevail. We continue. Chapter 30 hits. This is Amelia at Caton's apartment. This is more niceties between them, kind of more like them saying shit to each other that is talking about their feelings, but they're also kind of they know how to talk when it comes to sex, but they don't know how to talk outside of sex, and it's very apparent. And And once again, we get another sex scene of very, very, very passionate. It's building in passion. It's building in love, really. And it culminates with Amelia leaving. Because Kaiten makes this comment that, you know, she invited her over, and Kaiten is like, yeah, sure, any place we can have sex. And this marks a shift. It marks a shift. For the most part, Kaiten's feelings towards Amelia had been very, 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 very physical. You know, she was obsessed with the feeling her body, the feelings her body felt when Amelia touched her, when they kissed, when they had sex. But now sex is not becoming gratifying anymore. It's not satisfactory. She's craving more out of their dynamic because she's being absolutely starved of any sort of attention and intimacy outside of a sexual standpoint. She's craving that domesticity, and she knows that she may not ever get it. So sex is becoming less and less satisfying for Kaiten. Here's where we hit the 30s. Like I said at the beginning, 30s, the chapters are getting kind of the same. So we're going to start flying by. So chapter 31, we get the breakup between Kaiten and Laura. And it was inevitable. It was meant to happen. We needed it to happen. I was actually kind of I respected Kaiten because Laura asks, like, what's wrong? And she doesn't hide it anymore. You know, she kind of owns up to everything. She says, I've been fucking my boss. And Laura kind of makes these very toxic comments of, what, do you think she's just going to drop her husband for you? Like, is that what you think is going to happen? And Kaiten knows that's not what's going to happen, but she's in too deep and she feels too much. But this chapter is important because Laura was that final barrier kind of between them. She was that kind of moral compass that was hanging over Kaiten, and as this kind of manifestation of her guilt. But that's no longer there because Laura and Kaiten are split up. So now we're going to get just pure, unadulterated interactions between Kaiten and Amelia without the presence of Laura and that bit of guilt that she gave Kaiten. And we're going to see what is a relationship going to blossom into. Chapter 32 continues. It's, once again, uneventful. These 30s chapters, largely uneventful. They talk about the breakup between the two of them. She actually cooks for Kaiten in this chapter. The first part of the chapter is largely uneventful. The second part is this cooking kind of thing between the two of them. And they actually talk about her family. We talk about Amelia's family. Chapter 32 sets up her cooking. Chapter 33 is her cooking for Kaiten in this very domestic manner, what Kaiten had been craving. We get an insight into Amelia talking about how well she knows Jack, because we get instances of her being like, you can stay over tonight. You can't stay over this night. You can stay over that night, because she knows in the sixth sense when Jack will be home. And Kaiten acknowledges this and is like, dang, like, she wonders how long she had to have been with this person to know their routines, to know when she can be able to interact and really just continue to cheat on Jack with Amelia. But Amelia knows. But the chapter continues. We get into some domestic bliss, as domestic it's going to get, between these two sons of bitches in this chapter. And we see that Kaiten learns more about Amelia's family. Amelia is from a very, very, very poor family in Venezuela. And she had a father who's very, very ill. So she had to start working at a very young age. Jack came in for a week in Venezuela, saw Amelia. They hung out, brought her dinner, treated her like a queen, married her after a week. She was 19. It was just about 2 decades ago. So now we see that the implications of their marriage. As I speculated earlier, Amelia was a lot less rebellious. It's because she was naive. She was naive. She was the perfect woman in a sense for Jack, because foreign Venezuelan that he's bringing back to America in a country she doesn't know, with implications that has no awareness of, with this thought of the world that is completely fabricated, and a woman he can completely control, of total utter obedience towards, because he's giving her money. He's giving her family money. He paid for her father's, Amelia's father's hospital bills and stuff. Got him the best doctor, saved his life, because he was sick in Venezuela. And it brings another layer to her relationship with Jack. Amelia feels like she owes this man, owes him for her life. In an essence, that she in debt to him, because in a sense, like, she owes this man. He saved her life. He saved her family's life. We learn that he has a villa for them. Everything about it is just giving Jack the power and the control that we learned at the beginning of the book he craves, because that means that he has all the power and he has the money and has the control, and she's very stuck. But they have their little domestic eat pizza, talk about their family kind of thing. Probably the most wholesome conversation we've had between the two parties, like the entirety of the novel. But chapter 34 begins with Kaiten a little hungover from the rest of the book, and she's from the previous chapter, and she's expecting that Amelia is going to brush her away when she goes to work in the next day, because it was a very intimate, close setting conversation, and she was expecting that Amelia was straight up just gonna be like, shut down on her, like she has before. Establish a pattern of behavior of her panicking after intimacy, after showing her emotions, after breaking down her walls. It's a pattern of behavior that is established, that Amelia cannot deal with that. In this case, it doesn't come. In chapter 4, we've come a long way from the beginning of the novel. It does not come. Amelia seems to want to continue this affair, this more feeling towards a semblance of a relationship she has with Kaiten, because they're filling each other's needs, and they are also very important to each other. By this point in time in the novel, it's very, 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 very clear that they are very important to each other at this point in the novel. Chapter 34 continues. We got another sex scene. And at the end of this chapter, we get that Jack is going on a weekend trip. So a weekend trip that he takes every single weekend. So Amelia's like, you could stay over for the weekend. So sets up for chapter 35 for that to be her setting up that implication of Jack going away, Kaiten staying home, them continuing to live out their little domestic dreams and fantasies and whatnot. But chapter 35 begins with Kaiten acknowledging that sixth sense I was talking about with Amelia, with Jack. How she can always tell where he's going to be at, where he's going to go, what time he's going to be home. And he's home. And Jack's getting ready for his trip. And then they have a scene where Jack is like kind of messing with Amelia and being like, oh, you sound like you love me or whatever. And it's like Kaiten gets extremely jealous because of that, because he kisses Amelia and like leaves out the door, and she gets extremely jealous, and Amelia's like, are you jealous? And Kaiten goes, no, and she goes, you have a right to be jealous. She says, you just have no reason to be jealous. So again, it's We're, we're, we've built up the relationship, contextualize it through the type of sex that they've been having, slowly breaking down the barriers and getting more and more and more and more and more and more and more intimate, caring, passionate, loving, sensual with the sex slowly. Because I mean, we started from some piss poor, oh god, we started from the bottom, really. But we've improved to a very, 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 very sort of healthy, as healthy as it's going to be at this moment in time between the two of them, relationship. We move on to chapter 36. And this is just them living their domestic dreams, domestic bliss. Caden's over for the weekend. Strap on. 36, strap on. That chapter is relatively pretty boring. Chapter 37, we switch back to Jack's perspective, which I think is needed. I do make a note that we switch back right when Kaiten and Amelia are in like a sense of like a honeymoon phase. And I think this is going to denote a shift for the rest of the novel. That might be the apex of where they get at. That's the happiest they will be until the fallout comes, because we're heading into the ends of the novel, the latter parts of the novel. We're going to start patching up things, having things reappear, just like in Jack's chapter right now, chapter 37. We get another interaction she has with Marcus Slater, who is the agent from the beginning of the novel, the agent that he is trying to not be afraid of, but is afraid of. And you know, he's really trying to make it seem like everything's okay, but we from the context of what is happening in the novel right now, we do know that he is a little bit worried about Marcus right now, because Marcus, he acknowledges he is not at all like the other agents that he has been able to outsmart, because Jack does his business apparently very, very clear within the lines of the law in whatever country he's in. Does a lot of foreign business, and the lines of what's legal and what's not in different countries varies. So that's how he's able to do all these loopholes and stuff and stay afloat, because he knows how to bob and weave out of the way, and he's been doing it for a long time. We get this quote from Jack at the beginning of chapter 37, where he says, upholding a reputation, his life depended on it. From a young age, he had been taught the secrets of the trade, how to put on a public face, how to build a brand, how to keep his secrets secret. There were some things, though, best shared, and he waited all year to talk about his true exploits with the only two people in the world who wanted to hear and protected the details. So this man doesn't tell anybody anything. Tells nobody nothing, especially Amelia. I mean, Amelia gets the last part of everything, but it's further perpetuated by the point that he doesn't tell anybody a goddamn thing about what he's doing and his business adventures and what's going on. Like he doesn't say anything. Chapter 37 is him on this trip golfing, talking about bringing up Jenna, bringing up guy shit, and Marcus comes. He's back. He's back. He's cockier but careful about himself. Jack kind of threatens him, and he says, "You don't have anything." He says, "My business practices, they may be just this side of legal, but they are on this side." He says, "I have a very good team who sees to it." Then Marcus comes back with, "That's the thing about towing the line, isn't it? You never know when you might accidentally step over." And it rattles Jack. And Jack isn't a character to be rattled. We do know that from him, from every aspect of his life that he has under a very, very tight and concise control. Losing control of his business, his ventures, is not in his plan. And that is not something that he likes. And he does not like being on his back foot. So this sparks chapter 38 with more domestic bliss from Kaiten and Amelia. They're talking about more of Amelia's past. She kind of contextualizes the way her father was sick. He used to work in the mines in Venezuela and had really bad lungs, and tried to unalive himself, and was shaking so much that he missed. So just a little bit of insight into Amelia's backstory. But we get back to them. Domestic bliss, more sex scenes. Then Jack comes home. Jack comes home and tells the business adventure it didn't go as planned. You don't have to worry about it though. But Amelia's like, I think I have to worry about it. And he's like, you don't have to worry about it. But Soul comes in and kind of saves the day because Jack comes in, he's talking, it didn't work out, it's not working out. Kaiten and Amelia are still in bed with one another, and Soul is like, eat some dinner. Eat something. Don't go up there yet. don't go up there yet. Once again, protecting Kaiten and Amelia. Satan, Soul is like the number one protector that they have. Chapter 39. Relatively, again, uneventful. Jack's home. Amelia's slightly worried about the business adventure because she had never seen him act like this before. Chapter 40 is Jack acknowledging that Kaiten's car is there, and Soul lying and saying that she had car troubles. Soul fulfilling a errand, quote unquote, for Amelia to go out and pick up Kaiten, who's still in the house because she was hanging out with Amelia because they were having their domestic bliss moment. And Kaiten is in Soul's car having a breakdown in chapter 40, and she's like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep hiding. I can't keep bobbing and weaving. I can't keep. She's getting tired of this game, and she's slipping, and it's very clear that she's slipping. And chapter 40 is all about that slip. She keeps talking about how she wants to do the right thing, because she wants to end it with Amelia. And Soul is like, do you know that's the right thing to do? Like, do you know? And Kaiten doesn't have an answer. So we get to chapter 41. Once again, pretty uneventful. We get back to this dinner scene that we have with Jack, his parents, and Amelia. His parents are yuppie, rich white people. Amelia's a person of color, so they're racist. And this is more of Amelia learning more about the ways of the world in the terms of one percenters, because she remembered how nice and upfront, wonderful Jack's mom treated her when she first met her, and it was just this wonderful talk, this wonderful time. And now, like, it's not like that anymore. And she remembered after their wedding night, her mom Jack's mom practically calling her a savage, because she's Venezuelan and not from the United States. So how Amelia, we'll get there. I'll go there later. We're almost done. But once more, it's just this interesting familial dynamic. Amelia hates Jack's parents. Jack is kind of a little bitch, because he wants all this control, but also lets his mommy like fight his battles for his wife in front of him. So he's a little fucking bitch. Chapter 42, rarely pretty important. This is Amelia in bed. Okay. She gets up because she had been sleeping in that's the wrong point. Excuse me one sec. Oh, yes. Sorry. This is her showing up to Kaiten's apartment. Yeah, she just likes to do that unannounced, showing up to her apartment. She shows up to her apartment and she's kind of telling her, like, I need you right now. And Kaiten's like, I don't know if I can do this. And Amelia's like, you have to, you can, I need you. Which is just just so wonderful, just so she's like, I can't, I don't know if I can handle this without you, dude. Like, I don't know if I can do this. And Kaiten is very, very, very hesitant because she's reaching her breaking point. She's reaching that breaking point when it comes to her relationship with Amelia. She's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can sit here and have this relationship with you and not have anything more. She doesn't know she's satisfied with being a mistress, and that's the main point. Because she doesn't know she is, and I don't think she is at this point in time. But we prevail, and we get to the rest of this chapter, which is just kind of her telling her, like, no, you can do this. You have to do this. And I think Amelia is saying it for Kaiten's sake, but I also think she is saying it for her sake, because I think if Kaiten left her, I don't know what Amelia would do. Especially at this very, very vulnerable point in the novel. I don't know what would happen if Kaiten were to leave, what that would do to Amelia. So she stays. And chapter 43, it is Jenna actually talking to Kaiten at this like office holiday party, and we find out that Jenna knows that they're sleeping together just from their basic interactions with one another. And it's like a threat that really scares Kaiten, but it doesn't quite rattle Amelia in the way you would think it would, because she's just willing to let it exist. She's just willing to allow somebody to know. And I think it's because she's reaching that breaking point with herself where she's like, well, I need Kaiten in my life, and I kind of don't really care who knows about it. And she's hitting that point. That's chapter 43. Chapter 44 is Marcus Slater coming to Amelia. Yeah, it is Marcus going up to Amelia and asking her just some basic questions about some finances. He's like, you do the fundraising and the charitable causes for Halston and Company. She's like, yes, I do. He's like, do you have the finances? She's like, no, I just plan the budget. Other people sign the checks. And even Amelia acknowledges that Marcus seems different than a lot of the other agents who had previously tried to investigate Jack, because it seems like a pattern of behavior that she had protected him before, obviously, because we've covered and we know that Amelia feels indebted to Jack because of what he has done for her family, and she's there because she has to be for more reasons than one. And we learn that Marcus is a little different. He seems a little bit older with more experience. He has more on the line, and he's playing things a lot more carefully. And it's something that rattles Amelia. So therefore it's something that rattles Jack. Because she asks him, well, that's later. But she goes back home to Kaiten, and she kind of tells Kaiten about the investigation. And Kaiten is like, are you worried? And she goes, it's not my first investigation. Quote, Jack never tells me anything, and he always gets out of it. Amelia says sometimes he just wished she knew what was going on with her life. And Kaiten seems pretty concerned about the fact. Chapter 45 hits. More Amelia's perspective, her realizing, she's in love with Kaiten. It's very clear. She has this talk to him. She has this talk to Jack about Marcus, agent, and it rattles Jack. They have a really tumultuous fight about the fact. And he's just telling her like, no, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. I will. No, I got it. I'll take care of it. And, you know, she knows that Jack is evading, and she's never seen him panic like this, which makes her panic because for the most part, like she just said, he's always been able to get out of these very, very precarious, nefarious, almost impossible situations with all these agents and all these things. And with Marcus, he's worried. He's worried. He's worried. And he's worried. And he should be worried. And it makes Amelia worried. And she pushes at him. And because he starts to tell her that they can't fall apart right now. That he reminds her they have to continue to play their part as a happy man and wife. You know, they can't fall apart right now. And she's like, where I spend my nights is none of your concern, because she's spending her nights with Caden. And Jack is like, well, you need to behave. You need to be the woman I brought home. And he says, I should have left you in Venezuela. And she said, fuck you, Jack. And he almost hit her. Now, those were the limits I mentioned way, 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 way back in the beginning. I said, has Jack ever pushed her too hard? And from this fight, it doesn't seem like he has. It seems like they both know their limits with one another when it comes to their relationship. And it seems like Jack about to hit Amelia was a line that he didn't cross, that he wouldn't cross, but one that, because he almost did, telling about his psyche, his mental state, what's going on with him. He even apologizes, like, sincerely, because he wanted Amelia to put together this dinner party at his law firm, which is basically a smokescreen for him to talk to his lawyers about stuff without being obvious about it. And he says he's sorry, and he's like, can you please just put together the party? And she's like, yeah, but it's just showing the stress of Marcus in the story. He's a thorn in the side. He's coming. It's this threat. Chapter 46 is Amelia asking Caden to go away on this weekend trip. Very spur of the moment. She knows Marcus is very busy, so she has time for herself. So she tells Caden, like, go away with me for a little bit. So they go out to this cabin, and they have some nice domestic bliss moments together. But chapter 47 is her waking up to, them going domestic bliss. Chapter 47 is more domestic bliss. More sex, domestic bliss. Second part, chapter 47. Caden wakes up to Amelia burning papers in the cabin, in the fireplace. And Caden is like, what are you doing? And Amelia's like, well, I'm burning evidence, probably, because Jack asked me to. And they get into this squabble where Caden is like, so you're just doing it because he asked you to? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, what are you doing? And Amelia's like, I'm doing what Jack asked me to. And it's this moment where Caden is like, this woman is strong and she has this direction, this drive, but she will come when Jack calls. She will do that because Jack has so much over her. She feels completely indebted to him. There's nothing else that she can do other than obey this man. And it's just, it all culminates with Caden looking at Amelia shredding evidence, doing illegal things, shredding evidence for Jack. And she's like, what are you doing? And Amelia says, I can't leave him. I can't leave him. She talks about how Jack was a godsend for her family, that she can't fathom the thought of leaving him because he pays for everything. He's got her daughter, she's under his thumb. So she will do what he asks of. And she says she wants to leave him, but she can't. Chapter 48 comes back to, I have no notes on this chapter because this chapter is just Caden really sad. She comes back home after like their weekend trip, and it's just this very sad chapter of her talking about her emotions, and we're getting to a very tumultuous lull. Chapter 49 is about chapter 49 is about their breakup. A breakup, yeah. Amelia makes the comment that she wants Caton to stay at the palace, at the house, and Caton is like, okay. Then Amelia goes, I'll extend your contract indefinitely. And the phrasing of it pisses Caton off, because she's like, well, you're still controlled by your husband. You know, I answer to you, but you answer to your husband, so I answer to your husband. And they get into this fight, and she says just the awfulest things to Amelia, because I think Caton just wants space. She says, don't you think I know where this has been? You were bored. I was a new plaything for you. People like you collect people like me. You keep us for as long as you want and release us when you were all used up. She says, you're just like your husband. Like, damn. After everything you have gone through with this woman, this chapter really, she hit the nail on the head, because even when Amelia was like, no, backpedaling, Caton pushed further, and basically like destroyed her relationship with her. Chapter 50 is the aftermath of it. Aftermath of destroying said relationship. Her 6-month contract ends. Her original 6-month contract ends at Halston and Company, and she just leaves. Really, like, there's no Amelia and her really don't speak anymore, and it ends. Honestly, it just ends. But we're not at the end of the book. Like, they're ending, but we're not at the end of the book. And chapter 51 begins. Oh God. Chapter 51, and it's Soul talking to Amelia about, you need to be a human being again. You need to be a person. You cannot let this woman or let these implications ruin your life, because even though, you know, the best thing ever has left, which is Caton, you still have to prevail. You're still a mother. So Soul kind of is trying to kind of shake some sense into Amelia, but Amelia is just not having it. And she's at this point where she's starting to sleep in the guest bedroom where they used to have sex with each other. And Jack again brings up this point. We need to be a unit right now. We need to be the happy husband and wife duo that we always have been. We need to continue to be that. We can't sit here and be this. We can't fall apart, basically, is what he's saying. And she's like, no, I'm here with you. And he's like, yeah, sure, okay. And this comes the point in chapter 51 where Jack admits, oh, I know that you're sleeping with Caton. And he antagonizes her. And he's being gross and a pig about it. And, you know, Amelia just doesn't really have it. And she tells him, I'm not you. I'm not you. I'm not this. This isn't me. And Jack gets pissed off and he says, I'm leaving. And when I come back, you better be the fucking wife that I want you to be. And you better be a better one than you have been being. And this last quote at the end of chapter 51 hits. She says, Jack was right. When he came back, she would be better. She would put on a happy face and do exactly as he said, as she always had, as was required of her. There was simply too much at stake for her to do anything else. Yeah. Chapter 52 continues. Jack's at the motel, away from the house. This chapter is very important. So, this is the part of the novel that gets pretty off the rails. So major spoilers ahead. I just spoiled the whole fucking plot for you, but major spoilers. Caden was paid by the BRC to spy in on Jack and his finances while she worked there. And Jenna is also an inside agent, and they're working with Marcus the entire time. And that's the twist in the novel, is that that's something that happened. And it's a twist, and it's one that I didn't expect, but I will leave my opinions about the twist after the novel, because we're almost finished. But it's something that happens. But basically, excuse me, Caden is in the house with Amelia unknowingly. Amelia finds Caden, and she's planting evidence there so that the raid that Marcus is going to have tomorrow morning at the house when Jack is home goes off without a hitch. So she's planting evidence and breaks down and tells Amelia like what Jack has done. And Jack is a bad man. He's a bad man. He's a bad man. Bad man. First of all, he's funneling all the money from his charities into the pockets of him and his family, his investors. He also, let me just go down the fucking list because the whole thing is here. He uses charities to make millions, while Amelia is unknowingly making him more money because she's so successful at getting money for the charities. And he also worked with this man who was arrested about a year ago. So before the events of the novel, tellings later, he exchanges tokens with his associates when they complete a deal, like souvenirs. So there's this whole idea of a box that Jack has that has the names of all of these victims of people that have disappeared and have been sold and transported. The man that was arrested claims that Jack was on his bankroll, so claims that Jack helps him with their victims. So running a whole ring of sex trafficking, money, gaining profit from charities and whatnot, like just a lot of shitty stuff Jack has under his belt. And it all comes out in chapter 52, and Amelia is like, I can't do this. And Caden, with Amelia right now, tries to shake some sense into her. She's like, you have to leave him. You have to go. You have to get out of here, because she knows that Jack is going to do everything to save his ass, and that might mean taking Amelia down with him. And Caden is in love with Amelia, and she cannot see this woman go down for crimes that she is not responsible for. So it's just so much going on, so much happening. But 52 ends with Caden leaving and warning Amelia. Wow, so loud, so damn rude. Probably that guy with the fucking dirt bike in my goddamn apartment. Anyway, okay. 53. Marcus Slater's perspective. We learn that Marcus has Jenna and as an inside man, and also enlisted Caden as an inside man, and knows that Caden was involved with having sex with and feelings for Amelia. This chapter is about Caden pleading to Marcus, like, please save something for Amelia, basically. Like, you cannot in good faith take this man down knowing that he's going to take his wife down and his wife is innocent. And Marcus doesn't cave. He's like, people are going to get fired who got to get fired. People are going to get fried who got to get fried. I'm going to do my job. He's like, I've been after this guy for too long not to get soft when it comes to the people that are going to fall around him by proxy. So then Caden goes, oh, okay. I'll ruin your life. I'll expose you. I'll tell everybody. I'll tell everyone. And it scares Marcus because he knows that Caden is a woman in love, and she's pleading, she's saying, don't get Amelia. Don't get Amelia. She's got her daughter. She's got her family. Like, she doesn't know about the evils of Jack's business. And Marcus is like, there's nothing I can do. So she says, you can go to hell. And chapter 54 starts with more Marcus perspective. And he's raiding the house. He's raiding their mansion. He's raiding the house, and they have this they find the box with all the names in it at the house, but they also have this necklace that Marcus finds that was in the box. And we learn, I'll just tell you now, we learn Amelia lies about the necklace. Okay, there were some motifs that they picked up throughout the plot, and she lies about the necklace, and Marcus actually caves and gives her the necklace because she lies and said that was my grandmother's and Jack kept it from me. So Marcus lets her have it, but we find out something about the necklace later on. But chapter 54 is about the raid. They get the box, they get all the evidence, the house is shambles, and Amelia steals that necklace from Marcus and gets that necklace that was in the box. Chapter 55 starts, and it's back to Caitlin. Jack put her back in her old entry-level position at Halston and Company, and the company sinks once all the stuff starts going out about the BRC, his shady business practices, everything that's going on. It starts to get really, really, really bad for old Jackie boy. It starts to get really bad for him. But Caitlin stays, and it's to the point where it seems even suspicious that she's staying, but she stays. And he rehires her, and she stays. That's when we get confirmation that Jenna is in fact like an inside agent and was working with Jack just to get information on him. Then we get Amelia showing up at the house, or her office rather, at Halston and Company. There was, in their fight when they broke up, quote unquote, there was this whole notion that Amelia was being used by Caitlin, and Caitlin was like, no, I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you, but I did. I wasn't supposed to do what I did, but I did. But wasn't using you for information or anything like that. Because if anything, that doesn't really make sense, because Amelia didn't really know anything. But yeah, like, that was a fight. So that comes up again when Amelia visits her right now after the aftermath of everything, and we kind of get an update on what's going on. Okay. So she finally leaves Halston afterward. They have a talk at Caitlin's father's friend's job. She gets a job with him. And she's staying, kind of rooming with her parents at the moment. And she's at that job. And Amelia finds her, and they finally have that talk. And she's asking, like, how are you doing? Is Celine okay? Is everything okay? Asking how the money is. And we find out that Jack is kind of being very accommodating to Soul and Amelia at this point, just because he knows he's literally in like deep legal shit. But we find out that he has like very, very expensive lawyers on retainer, and he can kind of stay away from prison for a really long time. So everything that they have on him, they can keep delaying. So the main point of the novel is that, like, well, not the main point, but the main point of this chapter is like Jack is still going to have money. So Amelia is still going to have money to pay for her, like her parents and everything and all that stuff. So continue on. Chapter 55 continues. They have this conversation where, Amelia's like, you said that I was using you. Amelia was like, I said they were using me. And, they both were like, we're not using each other. We're literally in love. And then Caitlin's mom comes in because she's living at home at the moment, and she sees Amelia, and Amelia's like, okay, I know you probably hate me. I know you hate me. I know you probably don't like me. I know you probably despise me, but I'm in love with your daughter. And I loved her for a very long time, and I'm going to do whatever I can to be with her and be happy with her. And she says, I think that gives us some common ground. And that's the first thing we get of like the acknowledgement of their feelings and whatnot. And chapter 55 starts. All right. Chapter 56. It's been 3 hours. Yay for a longer podcast. I knew it was going to be long. I just didn't know how long it was going to be. All right, long podcast. Okay. 56. The book ends with the breadcrumbs that were dropped with the necklace that I dropped my phone. Fuck. Anyway, with the necklace that Amelia rather kind of tricked Marcus into giving her. The necklace had a photo of two individuals in them, which Marcus assumed to be her grandparents because she said the necklace was her grandmother. And the necklace had inscription in it. Okay. There was a photo frame in their household that had the word Antigua, okay, on it. Antigua, Amelia found out, was a bank that Jack kept a lot of his money in. And all of his funds were frozen at the moment. So Amelia assumed that Jack probably moved some of his money to Amelia's account that she didn't know she had. So she stole that necklace to test that theory. So she calls the number, dials the bank, says the password, and asks what her balance is. And her balance is like $16 million and some mess. She asks if there have been any moves on the account, if there's any been activity, suspicious on the account. The person's like, no. So she opens up a new account away from Jack, closes the account, and basically implies that her and Caton are going to be together and that they're going to donate a lot of the money to charitable places, keep some for themselves, but that they're going to try and be together. And that is how the book ends. That's how the book ends. With them being together, Jack is in deep legal shit for his nefarious activities. But that's how the novel ends, with that. And it's interesting. Going over it again, there's a lot that we went over. But I'm just gonna jump straight into like character analysis and what I think, how I feel. Try not to be too obvious, but we'll start with Caton. Caton was an interesting protagonist for me, because she was not innocent in any essence, and she was not a person who tried to claim some innocence or was, in a sense, trying to be more good than she actually was. She wasn't a person that was like, no. She wasn't trying to front. She had some bite. She wasn't a pushover type of protagonist. She was a protagonist in this sense that kind of fought for things that she wanted. And, we learned that from the beginning with Jack. Like, she was the only woman who had ever, like, started to press off against his advances and stuff, and is like, no, I'm not gonna do this. Like, no, like, you're not gonna get with me. You're not gonna do this to me. You're not gonna do that. And that prevailed throughout the rest of the novel. She had a sharp tongue. She was kind of headstrong, a little hard-headed, very, very passionate, very caring. but in a sense, I would say a very, very unique character, because she was not that just soft, demure, like, I'm gonna roll over for a person. Like, no, she was not like that at all. And I like that a lot about her. I did. We'll go to Amelia. Amelia was a puzzle, a mystery. A lot of things about her were a lot. A lot of things about her were a lot. She was very, 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 very hard to unravel. Very prickly at first. But I think once we got to know that her situation with her family in Venezuela and the relationship she had with her daughter, she's just trapped and caught in this cycle of having to protect herself from a man who she owes almost everything that is quote unquote good in her life to, that she is not in love with, and who treats her like shit. And that is why she is so angry and prickly at the beginning of the novel. She's just completely caught in this role, absolutely stone cold. I kept calling her a marble statue in my notes, because she's just stone cold emotionless majority of the novel, and it's obvious. But once Kaiten got in there, started thawing that out, learning about herself, really feeling that really empty space in her heart other than Celine, things changed. I found myself liking her by the end of the novel. I found myself being drawn to her passion a lot, especially at the end where she was like, I don't really care if Jenna knows, even her not knowing that Jenna was an inside agent. I don't really care, because she just was so upfront with her feelings about Kaiten. She was like, I just need this woman in my life. I just need this woman in my life. And she didn't care. And she started wearing that heart on her sleeve. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like passionate. And I found myself being very drawn to her. I've covered a lot about her feelings, about how she feels indebted to Jack and her relationship with her daughter, which we found out, I never touched on it. Basically, her daughter was getting bullied by a group of kids in school, and instead of talking to the kids, Jack had them all fired. So everybody was afraid of Celine in school. So then she aligned herself with the mean girls and became a mean girl, basically. So she was kind of just doing what she had to survive, like her mom. Parallels. So that's one thing. But we hate Jack. I love Soul in the novel. A protector, kind of voice of reason for both Kaiten and Amelia when they needed it, especially Amelia, because we all know that bitch needed some sense talked into her multiple times during this fucking novel, because she is a clusterfuck of some emotions for real. And Marcus was a fair, like, supporting character, I would say. I'm gonna go straight into my thoughts on the novel. Let me get my phone real quick because it dropped on the floor. Excuse me. And my thoughts, oh boy, they were a lot. I forgot that there was this much sex in the book. I told you there was that point in like the 20s, the chapters, it was like a sex scene like every chapter. There was a lot of sex. And usually I do prefer more spicier books. Okay. Probably my like golden number, if I'm not reading an erotic novel in a book, is like maybe 2 to 3 sex scenes. You know, 1 sometimes isn't enough for me, but 2 to 3 that are very good, well written, unique. That's like a good, like, quantifier, a good number for me. This one, too many. And it's hard to say. Too many, in my opinion. Too many that weren't telling anymore, you know? I can understand the ones, it was like chapters like 17, 18, 19, where each one was building off each other and they were all talking about how Amelia wanted to be gratified, you know. But the ones in the late 20s where it was just again and again and again, like I could have just had one and then had fade to blacks, you know. It was just constant, full page contact of just sex. And at a certain point you do get tired of it because it's not telling anything about the story anymore. It stopped being it was a plot developer, a plot mover for a good while, which I commend the author for that, for keeping the sex unique. But at a certain point it did stale out and I was like, okay, I can't read these two having sex with each other anymore. Like they've had so much fucking sex, like damn. So that's a qualm I have. Another qualm, the twist. Now, first time I read the book, I was like, what? Inside agent? Inside what? And I thought that meant it was a good twist because I wasn't expecting it. But I don't think this twist is good because you're not expecting it and it's not set up. So it just feels like it's there, you know. The only inkling I can get of alluding to the twist is Jenna finding out that Kate and Amelia are sleeping at that holiday or office party that they were at in the meeting. But that is really the only inclination I can get of it, because we really get nothing about Kate being approached by Marcus, being talked to by Marcus, having a relationship with Marcus or anything. Like we could have even gotten scenes of maybe Amelia seeing Marcus's name come up on like Caden's phone and being like, who the fuck is that? You know, something to place doubt. We had no doubt in her. You know, no morally gray actions. You know, they just felt like things were there because they were there. And I think that's my biggest qualm with the story, because I think that twist could have worked. I do. But because we knew Kate felt so heavily, you know, very strongly for Amelia, when the arguments became at the end of her saying, you'd use me, you don't want me, you don't love me, like, you didn't believe it because you knew from day one that like Kate was head over heels. If it was introduced maybe mid-book that she aligned with Marcus, it contextualizes her actions a lot differently. If we got scenes of her sneaking around the house, if we had stuff of her trying to figure out passwords and stuff like that, the grunt work, the grime work of being an inside man, if we got more of that, it would have shifted the fight that they had at the end, where Amelia questions if Kaiten was using her. Because I think that would have made that argument much stronger. But because we get none of that, and we see a lot of their domestic bliss, and in general, them building their relationship over the course of months, and, you know, slowly warming up to each other and actually being able to talk and being functioning, there's no inclination that Kaiten feels any other way besides intense love and feelings towards Amelia. And I think that could be the author's intention. And if that's the author's intention, then she did that well. But I think the novel could have hit harder if we had that mental kind of mind fuck, especially if that's what they were trying to go with having the twist in general. It would have hit that much harder if we got Kaiten's struggles, the grime, the dirtiness of being kind of a spy in a way. And I think that's my main qualm. Pros, I just really like the story in general. I think it's very unique. I like the toaster oven element, the straight woman aggressor toaster oven element. I really, really enjoyed some of those one-liners I told you. I mean, this author just has a way with her words. She just has so many good. I had to not mention every single one of them because there's so many highlighted. I have in my notes where it's just like, damn. Like, that's so good. Good balance of like humor. She has some very good snap in her dialogue, like just gabbing back and forth, and it's clever. Wrote the story with a lot of ease, simplicity, even though there were so many. Sex scenes were very good. good for like a publishable novel, erotic enough not to be like gratuitous, crude, but also not too fluffy and light. I think the evolution of sex throughout the novel was a very, very, very important factor, and a very good one at that, because I mean, we just get this like fucking, the first scene is like her like just, you know, masturbating her in like the basement, and then we get some very, very intense I love you, like sensual energy by the end of the novel. That evolution, I still think there were too many, but the evolution of sex was a big part of the novel that I really, really appreciated. In general, my thoughts, my opinions, I would say I recommend this novel. I wouldn't say I highly recommended it. I wouldn't say a highly, it's not up there on like the end all be all of lists of no, like this is the bet. Like, no, I think there are a lot of themes that if you are not down for, like if you don't like cheating, you're gonna hate this book. You're gonna hate this book. Just a lot of it. A lot of instances of guilt, of doubt, of morally fucked up characters, because we get a lot of action with Jack, a lot of time with him. We get to see a lot of him and what he feels. We don't sympathize with him. We have no apologists, but he still has a lot of time in this novel, and perspective and pages. And if that's not your tea, that's not your cup of tea. That's not your cup of tea. That's why I say I would recommend it. It's not a recommendation. You know, I think it's a good novel. I think it's a solid novel. I think there's some problems, like I said. But in general, I really I liked it. It's a good book. I liked it. And now time for the triple shuffle. Did you think I forgot? We're 3.5 hours in. I didn't forget. Okay, first song we got Let It Go by Keisha Cole featuring Missy Elliott and Lil' Kim. You need to get what he gon' wanna. It's a good song. Second song I have is Switch by NCT 127. It's the bonus track off of their, I think this is the first mini album. Yeah, this is Fire Track. Get it lifted. Sorry. And then the last song I have for the triple shuffle is Robin Thicke featuring Faith Evans, Got to Be Down, from his second album, The Evolution of Robin Thicke. This is when he made good music. This is when he made music for Negroes and Black people, and he stopped. But good novel. Good book, good song recommendations, good podcast. I'm really sorry this is so long, and bear with me, but thank y'all so much for tuning into the Jool Effect podcast. I will be back next week, backing at him again. I already have an idea what I'm going to do, and I'm very excited for it, but I will see you guys back in whatever I make next, and I hope you all have a wonderful, amazing, and awesome day. Thank y'all. Take care.